Όλα τα ακίνητα της Κύπρου σε ένα app. 100.000 ακίνητα προς πώληση και ενοικίαση στην οθόνη του Όλα τα ακίνητα της Κύπρου σε ένα app. 100.000 ακίνητα προς πώληση και ενοικίαση στην οθόνη του Όλα τα ακίνητα της Κύπρου σε ένα app. 100.000 ακίνητα προς πώληση και ενοικίαση στην οθόνη του Όλα τα ακίνητα της Κύπρου σε ένα app. 100.000 ακίνητα.
All right, so if anyone can just type in the chat there and just tell me that you can hear me properly, that will be absolutely fantastic. First time I'm going live, so this is a new experience for me as well. Give me a second. You should be able to hear me in a second. I can see some of the comments there. I'm getting a yes and you can hear me. That's fantastic. All right, so I did say 5, so we're going to wait until 5 to get started and give my intro, but it's really fantastic to see all of you guys here. This is like a big thing for me as well. This is my first live. It's my first live with you guys, something which a lot of you have been asking for. What PC do I use? All right, guys, I'm going to get so confused looking at the comments and trying to be doing this session with you guys at the same time. So if I don't answer your questions, because you see there's going to be quite a lot of them there, please don't take it the wrong way. So yeah, my PC, it's a HP. I think you've all seen my background logo, the HP Omen. Okay, and some of this slang terminology you're using, I really don't understand it. Honestly, it takes me time sometimes just to put the comments in ChatGPT so I can figure out what it is that you're saying to me. Now, I did have Leslie up here, my cat, at some point, but she's abandoned me. I was going to make her do her debut with you guys as well. So it is 5, so we're going to get started, guys. Please cover everything. Depends. Have you got 24 hours? I don't think so. Right. So let me get started and I'm going to answer a lot of your questions from the get-go. First of all the material which I'm going to be showing here today, the PowerPoint in PDF form, I will be sharing with you. I will be giving you a link so you will have access to all the resources and you can just go over it yourself at any point in time. So if you do miss this, I'm also going to be getting the recording from YouTube. Hopefully, from what I understand, up to 12 hours, the recordings are saved. So I'm going to be able to download it. I'm going to upload it. So if you can't stay here for the whole thing, hopefully you should be able to see the recording if you want to. Okay, so I'm hoping that's going to be fine. You know, you're going to be able to have access to this, and a lot of you are doing the exams on the 8th, so you're going to have time to do that as well. Okay, so what is it now over here? Now, yes, it is sunny in Cyprus. It is actually sunny right now, so it's not just a slogan. It is my thing. It is sunny in Cyprus, and I've gone through a lot. I get hundreds, thousands of comments from you guys, and some of you have been telling me where you're from. If I've missed you here, I truly apologize. I tried to go through and see, you know, all the different countries that you're joining in from and that you've been watching my videos. And it is truly fascinating and fantastic. And thank you so much to all of you for all those wonderful comments. I really, really, really do appreciate it. What are the countries for? These are just shout outs from all the people that have told me from the comments of my videos, and they've been saying I'm from this country. So just as a shout out to all of you guys, if your country isn't there, post it in the comments here. And if I can go through, then I will just know. I really do find it fascinating from all the different countries that you guys are watching my channel from and watching my videos from. And honestly and truthfully, I totally, absolutely appreciate every single comment. Oh, don't worry about the haters. I love the haters. The haters are awesome. Well done. Keep hating. Doesn't bother me one little bit. Don't worry, I'm not a little kid. Haters are haters because they're jealous that you have something or you do something that they can't do or that they want. That's fine. If you want to hate, you can hate. All right. So, oh, we got Kenya there as well. All right. I'm not going to waste too much time on this. I'm going to jump into what we're doing today. Okay. So, guys, 2 times button. You cheeky gits. Yeah, I've seen quite a few go through that, saying that put it on ×2 so the video goes faster. Well, fine, if you know what I'm saying. If you can keep up with what I'm talking. I know I talk slow, but I try to do this because a lot of you, English is not your first language and it's hard to follow. And my tutorials are designed so that I can try and support and help all of you which are having trouble with the English and try and cover all the bases. All right. Oh, and by the way, all you, I love you all too. Okay, I'm not going to be writing I love you to every single person, but I love you all too from the deepest of my heart. Honestly, I love the comments and I love the gratitude that you give me. So we're going to get started now. We're going to get started with what we're here for today. The dreaded theory paper. So what I've done, I've collected 13, not 12 questions from the 2024 papers. Okay. Now, are these the questions that are going to pop up in your exam? Obviously not. Is it the style of questions that are going to pop up? Yes. If we go through the papers and see what we've seen in the past few years, we see that each year the exam board tries to focus on things which are trending, things which are in today. So if we think about that, just on that concept, then we're looking at how things like Internet of Things is affecting our lives, how social media is affecting our lives, artificial intelligence, how is that affecting our lives? So it stands to reason that questions like this are going to be popping up in the exam paper. Now, the comments on my right-hand side are driving me crazy because I keep seeing them scrolling up and down, but that's fine. I'm not going to look at them anymore. I'm going to focus on going over what we're here for now. For each question, each of the 13 questions, I have set them up as follows. We're going to be looking at the question itself as it is in the question paper. We're going to be identifying what chapter it is in. I have put resources that we're going to discuss on that topic. And then we're going to see how we can answer the question, a model answer, a correct answer. And then I've also got the mark sheet for that question. So when I give you guys this resource material, you've got something which is absolutely complete and it's a fantastic resource for your learning. So let's start with the first question and see the flow. And I think you'd pick up on it. Okay, question 1. This is the first question we're going to look at. And this is on, it says here, as I said, I haven't put the paper because I've got the mark sheets attached to this document as well. Smart devices and microprocessors can monitor and control devices in the home. Describe, giving examples, the negative effects of using smart devices. Now, as always, I say you have to pay special attention when you're reading the question. And we can see that this particular question is focused on smart devices, nothing else. It's not to do with microprocessor control devices. So that's the question. Let's go have a look and see. This is on chapter on using effects of using ICT. It's to do with microprocessor control devices and smart devices. So first, let's understand what a microprocessor control device is. And that's the first step. All devices which contain a microprocessor, which is like an electronic chip, and it can accept digital data as input. And this is very important. Microprocessors can only deal with digital data. It can process the instructions stored in memory, produce the required output, and it needs input and output devices to be useful. And we've got a fridge as an example. So what do I mean by that first chapter, that first paragraph there? If we think, and I've got another diagram later on, but just roughly, if this is our microprocessor, the microprocessor needs to have input connected to it. And these inputs are usually sensors. Now, the thing with sensors is, sensors, and you students get this wrong all the time. If you ask, what does a thermometer do, or a thermostat, or a temperature sensor? You say it measures the temperature. It doesn't. All sensors do, they produce an electrical signal. So if you think of a hose pipe with water inside, the water without any restriction will flow, let's say, this far. If you put your foot on the hose pipe and restrict the flow, then the water will flow up to here. If you restrict it even more, you get less flow. If we think of this as a chart, then what you're getting, as you increase and decrease the pressure on the hose pipe, you're getting a signal that looks like this, where the peaks measure the flow of the water. That's called an analog signal. That's what the sensors produce. They produce a continuous signal, an electrical voltage of different peaks. The microprocessor can't handle that. The microprocessor can only read digital data. So before this can be processed, it has to go through what we call an ADC, an analog to digital converter, and that will convert the signal to a digital signal. That's what we get into the microprocessor, the digital signal representation of the analog signal of the sensor. The microprocessor then needs memory. Now, memory, what it does, you know, when you're setting the temperature of your air conditioning unit, or the temperature of your oven, or the temperature of your refrigerator, well, when you say you want this to be at, say, 21 degrees, that has to be stored somewhere. And that's where that's stored. That goes in that memory there. So as this signal come from the sensors, come to the microprocessor, it will compare this signal with what's stored in memory. And depending if that signal is higher or lower, it has rules or instructions, and it will produce an output. If that output says if the temperature is too high, or the signal represents a very high temperature, then the output will go to the compressor of the fridge and turn the compressor on so the temperature goes down a bit. As the temperature goes down, the signal from the sensor changes. That signal turns into a digital signal. That is then compared with what's in memory, and it's constantly seeing the signal from the sensors. So microprocessor controlled devices essentially are sensors producing an analog signal, which is converted to a digital signal compared to memory. Depending on that comparison, it will produce an output signal to whatever it is it's controlling. If it's an alarm system, then it might be sound the alarm because it's detected somebody has stepped on a pressure sensor. So some examples are things like a microprocessor controlled fridge, where it controls the temperature, runs defrost cycles, controls internal lighting, all of these things. What's a smart device? Well, here we've got a smart fridge. So we had a fridge which was not a smart device. It had microprocessor controlled devices in, but it wasn't a smart fridge. For something to be a smart device, it has to be connected to the internet. And that will allow it, or internet, or to a network, and that will allow it to be able to communicate with other devices. For example, your smart devices, your mobile phones, or applications. It can share data with other devices for analysis. It can interact with other users and other smart devices. Essentially, it's all part of the IoT, Internet of Things. So when we call something a smart device, whether it's your refrigerator, your oven, your watch, your mobile phone, it simply means it can communicate and share data with other devices, and that's usually done through the internet. So with a smart fridge, what's the difference? Well, we can have things, for example, where the fridge can automatically update your shopping list and send your shopping list to your mobile phone. So if you're driving around and you're going to go home and you're going past the supermarket, so hang on, I'm near the supermarket right now. Let me check my app for my fridge and see if my fridge has put some lists of some things I need to buy. And that will save you time. Instead of going home and realizing you're out of milk and eggs and then going back to the supermarket, you can just do your shopping. It will do the shopping list for you. In fact, it can actually order the items for you automatically. Isn't that awesome? So it can send with supermarkets which are linked with an application, and your fridge will see that you're running low on something. It can actually order the items and they're delivered to your door. So that's what the smart device is. Other types of smart devices, and I've got some examples here for you, because you are the question you're going to be asked is not going to be the same as probably what's already in the 2024 pace. It's going to be a variation. So other devices are things like baby monitors. Baby monitors before was, if you hear the baby crying, then you go and see what's wrong with the baby. If the baby is not crying, then you don't bother going. Whereas now with smart devices, the baby monitors can monitor the baby's movement, breathing patterns, temperature, to see if the baby has fallen or it's turned on its face and it can't breathe. And all of these things can be seen on the baby monitor, informing the parents of the baby's condition at any point in time. Now, some of you may be asking right now, is that a good thing or a bad thing? Well, that's another question, isn't it? What are the advantages and disadvantages? Smart security systems, these are great as well. Some of you might have a smart security system where you've got cameras at home and you can access the cameras on your mobile phone. And that's fantastic if you're waiting for somebody to turn up. Or if your camera detects movement in your house, it may send an alert to your phone application saying the camera's detected some movement. So that's another way of smart devices communicating with another device to inform you. Okay, so that's just another two examples. So I've got here a list of advantages. I'm not going to go over them one by one because we're going to be here for the next 6 hours if we're going to do this for everything. But you have to have, if you read through these and have a look at some of these here, just pick up 2 or 3 points which you can really relate to, and that's what you want to keep. The idea is I'm trying to give you as much as I can so you can find something that you can relate to and you can use that as an answer in general. For example, health benefits. You may have someone in your family or somebody who may have low insulin or have diabetes. You have sensors which they wear, and if their sugar level goes too high or too low, it will send a notification to a caregiver notifying them that their blood sugar level is not correct, and they can go there and take action and help them out. Money efficiency, automated shopping lists, updates, remote control of utilities. All of these things are things that you can change. Energy costs, for example, if it's a cold day, you're driving home and you want your house to be nice and warm when you go home, well, you can connect through your smart device, your mobile phone, turn your heating on so when you go home, it's nice and warm. The alternative would have been, well, you have to leave the heating on all day to go home to a warm house. And that will be a waste of money and a waste of energy. So we're saving energy costs by using smart devices. And we've got up here advanced baby monitoring systems, so on and so forth. Now the disadvantages, here's the controversial part. So all of these smart devices are fantastic, but there are disadvantages. And some of them are quite understandable as soon as you read them. You see, the thing is, guys, you've got all the answers here. But many times you don't understand the question to get that information and put it on paper because you think maybe that's too easy an answer. It's not. What you think of is what you put on paper. If you've ever tried to help a parent or a grandparent or an uncle or an elderly person to connect their mobile phone or smart device to the Wi-Fi, you've probably realized how difficult it is to get them to understand. Or if they want to pay something using internet banking or they don't know what they're doing, you try to explain it to them. It's really, really hard. Okay, why? It's not the easiest thing. It is for you guys because this is a generation you're born in. So one of the disadvantages is it needs additional investment. You need to pay for extra devices like Wi-Fi. If you're going to connect all these devices, you need to have capabilities or some technical knowledge to connect them. So you need to have technical dependencies. The social impact. The social impact is another thing. People are spending too much time on their mobile phones. Okay, and because everything is an application on your phone, all these smart devices are sending you information to your phone. So you're becoming less sociable and you're always on your mobile phone. And it's not just for social networking. This is for just using these smart devices. I have a friend, he has a petrol station. Now, he's got cameras at his petrol station. And whenever we go out as a family to eat or have some fun, he's obsessed by looking at the cameras at his petrol station to make sure everything's okay. So instead of contributing to the conversation, having some fun and relaxing. He's always on edge looking, oh, what's this guy doing? Is he putting petrol? Is he doing something else? Okay, so that's another disadvantage. Security risks. Anything connected to the network always is going to be a security risk. You need to think about security. You need to think about somebody might hack into that device, they might collect personal data, or they may access your security system at home and monitor you without you knowing. Physical health and concerns, well, it does promote a seated lifestyle. We spend a lot of time seating down, seeing our mobile phones or our devices. Less physical movement. Instead of us getting up to go switch something on, we just switch it on from the mobile phone or our smart device now. Before, we used to say people were lazy because of remote controls on the television. You had to get up and change buttons when I was young. I was the remote control in my house. You know, if my dad wanted the channel changed, he would say, get up and press button number 3. So I was the remote control. So I would do my steps, he wouldn't. Now it's even worse. We control everything through our smart device. So anyway, that's the disadvantages there. Here, now this slide here, this is from my very good friend. I'm going to give a shout out here. Very good friend and a colleague, George Gakufa. I've been working with George for many, many, many years now, about 17, 18 years now. He's a fantastic ICT teacher, and I have learned a lot from him. So George, if you are listening right now, well, kudos to you. It's a pleasure all these years that I've been working and still working with you. So anyway, this slide is from George Gakufa. So you can see here some examples. And here's a model answer, guys. So I'm going to leave that there for you to have a quick look at and just read it. Essentially, I've highlighted the bits at the top which are important. These are the things that we need to understand. This is the question to do with control devices in the home. You need to describe giving examples. This is very important, these little keywords. And the negative effects only. So here I've put the model answer which says smart devices can take over tasks that people would have to do manually. Does that give me a mark yet? No. George Kakufa from Cyprus. He teaches with me at the school where I am. So this line here doesn't give me a mark. This is just the build up for my marks. So I'm saying what smart devices are. I'm giving knowledge. And this can result in humans getting lazy. So there's one mark. And as a result could lead to humans becoming overweight. Okay, so I've described that because the devices are doing things that we would normally do. We're not doing them anymore. And then I'm giving another example. Smart fridges can identify when you're running low on items and order items automatically. So you do not have to go to the supermarket. There's your mark with the example. It may order items you did not want. Here's a disadvantage. There's another, that's another disadvantage there, a negative. You may not want to order more eggs, although you've run out. Why? You may be going on holiday tomorrow. If you order the eggs now, they're going to be rotten by the time you come back. Smart monitoring devices like smart baby monitors can make parents oversensitive. Absolutely. Parents are running up and down the stairs like crazy. Probably giving them good exercise. The slightest thing that goes wrong, or if it gives false information, then that could create a panic for parents and they're running up and down the stairs. So we've got false alarms there. So this answer here is actually not just 4 marks. I've got around about 7, 8 marks in there. But there you go. I wanted a nice complete answer for you. And this is the mark sheet. This is the mark scheme for that question. Now, again, you guys, you're always looking at the mark schemes. But the mark schemes are just points and guides for the examiners, for us to look for something in your answers. It's not there to be able to answer like points. Now, I've just seen a very quick glance. Is it for 2 marks for the explanation and 2 marks for the negatives? No, it's 4 marks for 4 negatives, but you have to have an example, an example. It doesn't have to be 4 examples. You could have an example like here, I've got, it does things that humans do, and I've got lazy and overweight. That will be like 2 marks. Okay. So you're looking at the negative effects. What you're looking for is negative effects with examples. So you can't just say microprocessor or smart devices make people lazy. No mark. Why? You haven't given the reason why. And my students know something about me. Whenever they give me an answer, the first thing I'm going to say to them is, why? They give me an answer. Hi, Damascus. Buy me Damacus? What's Damacus? Anyway, I always say why. Why? They give an answer, why? Give an answer, why? You have to justify your answers. All right, question number 2. Wow, you can see this is going to go a long time, huh? Right. So I've put together some things to do, all the questions like with microprocessors and so on here. Cars can have sensors at the front and rear of a vehicle to detect obstacles. Describe how sensor detects an obstacle. So we have to describe how the sensor detects an obstacle and sends the data to the microprocessor when parking the car. I've already answered this. I've described this for you with a diagram, but I've also got a good diagram here. There it is. So this is what I drew before. So the way, if we're looking at this question here, how the sensors work, well, the sensors are here. Now, the sensor could be any kind of sensor. And we're going to see in the resources that I've given you, the sensor at this point here when a car's parking is something like a proximity sensor. A proximity sensor will sense if something is close to it. And how does it do it? Well, it's like the radar of speed detectors that police use. It produces a signal, and that signal, when it hits an obstacle, the signal bounces back. The time it takes for that wavelength or that signal to bounce back can be calculate the distance. Now, you don't need to go into that much detail, but essentially what happens here, the sensor is constantly producing here an analog signal with the waves that it's receiving from things that are bouncing back. So let's say nothing is bouncing back, then you're getting a flat line. And as you're getting closer to something, it's going up and up. And then as you get too close, it goes up and it'll beep a lot. This is an analog signal. This goes through the analog to digital converter, converting it into a digital signal. We've done that. The microprocessor will take this digital signal, compare it to what's in memory, depending on what the memory has stored to say, beep, stop, the signal's too high. Then it will produce a digital signal to go to the output. The digital signal then has to be converted to an analog signal, which goes to the sensor. And that sensor could be an alarm. It could be anything you want. Okay? So that's basically how it works. Now, I've got here for you a good description here of everything. Let me just get myself out of the way here for a second. So you can't, I'm not on top of that. So here you can see I'm explaining what an analog signal is, the process from analog to digital. The CPU takes the information, compares it to what's in memory. That produces an output digital signal, and the digital signal goes back to an analog signal. So you can look at that slide. I've explained it 3 different ways. Okay, I can bring myself back now. Wait. Okay. So here's a simple device for a house. So this may be for a greenhouse. It could be for a house. It could be anything. This is a common question or something to do either with a lake and pollution or a greenhouse or some other control device, let's say a vehicle. So here we've got our sensors. We've got a light sensor. We've got heat sensors and humidity sensor. This is to do with the greenhouse. If they ask you to describe the sensors and what sensors you would use, think about it. Don't put some silly sensors like a pressure sensor. How are you going to use a pressure sensor in a greenhouse? Stop and think. Think logically. What do plants need to grow? That's what we need to control. Moisture, humidity, heat, oxygen, carbon dioxide. You can add those in there as well. That's fine. All of these sensors measure and send an analog signal, produce an analog signal, which is converted from analog to digital. That goes to our processor. The processor takes these digital signals. Oops, that's not a digital signal. That's a silly analog signal. Takes the digital signals and converts and checks them with the memory. And according to the levels of each thing, it will produce a digital output again. Digital to analog converter. And that will turn on the lights, turn on the heater, open the vent. The output device here, that will be a motor. That could be a motor. Here, it could be a heater. This is a light bulb. Okay? All right. Here I've got some sensors. These are sensors you should know about. These are sensors that will help you answer any type of question. Can you answer with bullet points? Well, look at the question. It says, and we're going to look at that in a second, describe. So your answer is no. not bullet points. Now, will you get marks if you use bullet points? I understand that English is not, most of you, is not your first language. So it's very hard to formulate a comprehensive answer in a question like this. Try not to put it as dots with bullets, but make them short sentences one after the other. It makes it easier to read and more of a described question. Okay? Try your best. Don't just put bullets and very short, well, we'll see my answer and we'll compare it. So these are sensors that you should be able to identify and use them accordingly. So if you have a lake and you want to measure the pollution, maybe you can use something like a temperature sensor to measure the heat of the water. You might have a light sensor. A light sensor would actually measure how clear the water is or murky, something like that. You could have a pH sensor for a lake to see the acidity of the lake. If you're looking at a greenhouse, you've got humidity sensor, an alarm, you've got motion sensors. So have a look at these sensors and just make sure you know about these sensors and in which scenarios you can use them. They all work the same though. They all produce an analog signal which has to be converted to a digital signal for a processor to read it. So here's my answer. The question is here, how the sensor detects an obstacle and sends the data to a microprocessor when parking the car. This is a 4-mark question. It says describe. So instead of points, you want to put the sensor, and I put here in brackets proximity. Maybe you don't have to put that, but that just shows that I know what I'm talking about. And these are things, little tricks that examiners are looking for. It continually transmits a signal. Can you see? This isn't a very big sentence. I could have made that as a bullet point, but I just put that in a sentence style. If there are any obstacles nearby, then the signal is reflected by the obstacle. The proximity sensor is continuously monitoring reflected signals. And by continually monitoring, it means it's always getting the signal which is being reflected, producing the analog signal. That picked up the analog signal, which is sent to an analog to digital converter. So anything to do with sensors, the processor and how it deals with it, make sure you mention the analog to digital converter. Okay? Now, this question only relates to sends the data to the microprocessor. It doesn't say anything about warning the driver that is getting close to an obstacle. It doesn't say anything about that. This question is only about how the sensor detects and sends the data to the microprocessor. Nothing. This is why I haven't included the DAC, the digital to analog converter for the output. It hasn't asked me. So if I then say that this signal, the microprocessor compares the signal to what's stored in memory, depending on the difference in value, it will send an output and alarm the driver. That's a fantastic question. That's a fantastic answer. I get 0 marks for it. It's a fantastic answer. I've wasted my time, but I don't get any marks because I didn't read the question carefully. This question is only about sending the data to the microprocessor. So please read those questions carefully. And this is what the mark sheet is looking for. Question 3. Don't worry, they're going to start getting a bit faster soon. Okay. So again, these 3 questions, these are 3 different types of questions on microprocessors and smart devices. So, and then we're going to go into other things. I tried to group them together. So I'm not ping-ponging backwards and forwards non-stop from one topic back again, so on and so forth. So this one here tells vehicles can contain microprocessor control devices to improve transport safety. And can you see here, we're looking at sensors, and this is a different type of question again. This is to improve transport safety. For example, when a vehicle approaches a road speed sign, the microprocessor sends an alert to the driver. Discuss the positive, now look at this, the positive and negative effects of using microprocessor control devices in transport, not at the home, not at school, not at office, transport safety. Your answer must only be focused on transport safety You are discussing the positive and negative effects. Now you're going to say, can I use bullet points? No, you can't. If you do, you will get some marks because the examiners are trained to mark positively. So if you have no choice, don't leave it blank, write anything down. But you will not get full marks if you're using just bullet points. So let's go look at the theory behind this. Now, no, you don't need to learn this diagram. This is just to show you how many microprocessor control devices there are in a modern car. Yeah, there's so many of them. You don't have to learn them. This is just for you to have something to visualize if you get a question like this. And this could be a refrigerator, it could be a microwave, it could be a baby monitor. There's so many different sensors. These are some of the sensors and the description of them that we find in a car. Some of them you know. Some of you may know about the ABS, the anti-lock braking system. What that does, if you hit the brakes in an emergency, your wheels are going to lock. And when your wheels lock, the steering wheel doesn't have any effect. The car keeps going straight. So what the ABS does, it will hit the brakes and release the brakes many, many times. So the wheels do this. So they keep turning, and that allows you to have control. That's the ABS system. The airbag control system, you know about that one. You know, if you crash, the airbags open up. Climate control, this is the AC or the temperature control of the vehicle. So depending on what temperature you set it at, the microprocessor will do that. Satellite navigation, something also that you probably know in cars or on your smart devices. Tire pressure monitoring system, this is another one. Cruise control, this controls you can set the speed and your car keeps that speed. This is another one, very quite used in modern cars. The lane depart warning. So if you start going away from the lane, from your line, it will warn you. And the other one as well is this, again, the proximity sensors. So this can be used to help you with parking, but at the same time, you have proximity sensors which tell you how close the vehicle in front of you is. So if you get too close to the vehicle and you don't see it, your car will start braking or it will start warning you before you hit the car. So this is some information. Here are some disadvantages. This is what we're going to base, parts of our answer on. All of these sensors are new devices. They cost money. So the cost of the vehicle is going to increase. In any smart device or any microprocessor control device, there's an increase in price because of these control systems. False alarms. Yeah, you may get a false alarm. Many times the tire pressure management system, it sends that the tire pressure is low when it might not be, or it might be just on the verge. You may get a false alarm. Aeroplanes have come down. Tragic accidents have happened because of false alarms or sensor malfunction. An aeroplane has come down at some point in the past because they forgot to remove the tape when they were cleaning the aeroplane. And that tape was covering the sensor, sending wrong warnings. So what does this mean? We are so reliant on these sensors that when there's a false alarm, many times people don't know how to react because they're so dependent on these systems controlling things for us. If we get too close to the car, it brakes for you automatically. So you're not paying attention. If the sensor is giving a false warning, we don't know how to react because we've never had to. Okay, so these are some of the disadvantages. So we are over-reliant and drivers become over-reliant on these sensors. And this is in every scenario. Sensor malfunction and limited range to coverage may not detect this one here, I always remember my neighbor. He bought a brand new, I can't remember, it was a Discovery, a Range Rover or something like that. And he was really happy with it. Brand new car. He lives opposite me. 3 days later, he comes home with a big dent in the back of his car. I said, hey, what happened to the car? He goes, oh, I crashed into a post. I said, well, don't you have parking sensors? He goes, yeah, but it didn't detect them. Why? Because the post was too small for it to detect. And he ended up smashing his car because all this time, he was driving a car with no parking sensors and he was fine. When he bought a new car with parking sensors, he put all of his reliability in those sensors As a result, he crashed his car. So here's an answer for you. We're looking for 6 marks. We're looking at transport safety. We're discussing the positive and negatives. So I always start off with a discussion just to bring to show that I understand what's going on. Microprocessor control devices can monitor conditions continuously and with accuracy. And this is true. This statement here is true for any device. Even if it's a device measuring the weather, measuring the acidity of the lake, it can do these measurements 24 hours a day, non-stop, hundreds if not thousands of measurements per second, which is something humans can't do. And it will measure them with the same accuracy. Humans don't. So in vehicles, this means that the driver can focus more on driving. So this is an advantage because he doesn't have to worry about all the other things. And if something's coming too close to him and this, that, the other, he can focus more on the driving, making travel safer. So here's a good advantage there. It makes travel safer because the driver can just focus on the road instead of all the other bits and bobs and mirrors. Control devices can avoid accidents. So we've discussed that, which is a good thing. If the driver, for example, is putting on their makeup or checking their Instagram account while they're driving, and they shouldn't, if they go to crash into the car in front of them, it will brake for them. Okay, parking sensors and cameras assist the driver when parking, making it easier. Now, can you see? You can just say parking sensors, but that's not giving me the discussion. So what are parking sensors? Good or bad? Well, why? You have to give the why, because it assists the driver when parking. Assists, not park for them, making it easier and providing a sense of confidence to the driver. You guys, when you start driving, you're going to understand what I mean by that. Sometimes people avoid taking or using their car to go somewhere because it's somewhere they've never been to before, because they don't have the confidence, because it's a new road or a new area. So sensors can actually build that confidence for you to actually do that and park in tight spaces because you know you're not going to hit the other car. These control systems, and here's the twist, here we go to the negatives, however, can be expensive, increasing the cost of the car. It can cost to maintain and repair the control devices. The other downside is that drivers become too dependent on the microprocessor control devices. And if the control device malfunctions or gives a false alarm, the driver may not know how to react. So we've discussed, we've used our knowledge, and we've identified a number of points. And this is the mark sheet. You can see again, the mark sheet is very vague. And this is one of the reasons students do badly in the theory, is because of all of this. You just read the mark sheet and try to remember these little points. All right, there are risks involved in social networking sites. Now, this is something which is going to come up quite oftenly. This is something of your generation, so you really need you really do need to be able to answer these questions, read the questions and understand what they're asking for. It says here, describe 4 strategies you would use to minimize the risks of using social networking sites to make new friends. So this is social networking to make new friends. That's what your answers, these 4 points, have to be about only. And it is a describe. We don't just write the fact. Do not meet people. That may get you a mark, probably won't. All right, I've given for you here, because you're not going to get the same question more than likely. You're going to get something else which is related again to e-safety. This is an e-safety topic. And there are 4 things that you need to look at on e-safety. The internet is the general one. And under the general one, you've got things e-safety with email, e-safety with social media, e-safety with online gaming. You need to know all of these. Can we write positive and negative aspects in 2 paragraphs? No. You need to use the 4 points. Let me give you another simple example, something that students do many times. Instead of giving 4 points, 1, 2, 3, 4, you give 5, 6, 7, 8 points, thinking that if this one is wrong, but this one is correct, you get the mark. You won't. Examiners, when you put more than you are asked for, so let's say they ask for 4 things and you give 6, they will take the first 4 and only mark these ones. If these 2 are wrong and these 2 are correct, these two are ignored. Only the first 4 points. So when you're given a list to create a list or identify 4 items, the 4 first items. So don't bother putting more because you won't get the mark. They won't even look at anything else that you write underneath. So I've got for you here, separated a slide for each one. I'm not going to go through all of it step by step, but you can read through this and you can look at it while I've got it here as well. So with social media, this is to do with e-safety with social media up there. Think about what you do. If you were to tell a sibling or somebody younger than you and they needed help and they wanted to, you know, I want to make new friends on social media or using social networking, how would you advise them? That's your answer. What you would say to a 10-year-old, that's your answer. And why do I say a 10-year-old? Because when you say 10-year-old, some of the answers that you would give and you would say, hey, but that's common sense. It's not common sense for a 10-year-old. With a 10-year-old, you would take the time to analyze the little points that you have in your head and you don't normally write down. That's the important thing here. So, 1, privacy settings. Set them to private. Always check your privacy settings on your social networking. Restrict who can see your personal data and your location. Your personal information. Never share your full name, address, or school details. This is one where parents really mess up. And you're going to see this in another example further down. Parents like to take pictures of their kids when they're going to school because they look so cute with their school uniform. That's like telling every sick-minded person, this is my child and he goes to this school, so now we know exactly what country you're in, where you are, and what school your child goes to. Can I write continuous prose instead of bullet points for questions like that? For this question, you have to use the 1, 2, 3, 4. If it's a describe with a long paragraph one, yes. Continuous instead of bullet points, yes, you probably can. Yes. Guys, I'm only just randomly looking at a question whenever something pops up, okay? Because there's no way I'll be able to answer all these questions and go through these as well. So most of the questions I'll go through when you ask when I'm done with these questions. All right, so avoid sharing your location. Friend and contact management, only connect with people you know in real life. I know nobody does that, but it's an answer, isn't it? That's what you would tell a 10-year-old. Never agree to meet people online, contacts in person. Right, so this is common sense for everybody. You never meet someone you've met online in person unless you tell an adult, you tell another person, you go to a public place, you go with somebody else, go with 2, 3 other people. You never go on your own, okay? And always go to a public place and never at night, okay? It's always best to avoid and always use a platform which verifies that the account that's being used by the other person is a real account. In other words, they've given some real information to have access to an account, because that gives you a bit more security. Block and report unwanted or suspicious users. Now, content awareness. Think before you post. Remember your digital footprint. When you post something, you put it on social networking or social media, it is there forever. Even if you delete it, it is stored somewhere. So the rule is, if what you want to post, you would not be comfortable posting on a massive billboard on the highway where the whole country can see it, don't post it. That's the rule. If you're not comfortable, and here's a good one, if you're not comfortable with your parents seeing a post, don't post it. If you're not comfortable with anybody seeing your post, don't post it. Okay, be respectful, your language and comments. This is probably one of the more important ones and the ones that people miss the most. And that's because what is e-safety about? It's about you being safe, you not being targeted. Why would you be targeted? Well, you probably have done something to trigger something. Not always, but usually if you badmouth or you tease or if you're playing an online game and you're showboating and making someone feel bad because they keep losing and this, that, the other, that could trigger something in them and they can start targeting you. Okay, so if you're always respectful, you're reducing the chances of you being targeted. Remember that employers may check your social media accounts. Not may, they will. I promise you they will. I hire people, I do interviews, they will check your social media accounts. And if you posted something 10 years ago when you were younger, which is either racial or you're insulting somebody's ethnicity or their religion or something like that, chances are you're not going to get the job. Okay, so be careful. Everything you do now will come back and reflect on you in the future. Security measures, always use strong, unique passwords. Two-factor authentication, absolute must these days. I have to use my two-factor authentication at least 20 to 30 times a day. I never get my device to remember any passwords. Don't use the same passwords across different social media platforms. Never share your login details. In fact, get yourself a password manager. I've got over 300 passwords and I never, ever, ever remember or know any of my passwords. I open my password manager, copy, paste. All right, here I've got the section on e-safety using email. I'm not going to read this, but in general, I'm going to go over this because you might get a question which is to do with email instead of social networking. With email, it's the same thing. Be careful when you're opening emails. Even if it's an email for someone that you know, never click on any links, never download any attachments. There's a question on that we're going to see in a minute. We always check the domain of the email. So it might have a name, which it seems normal, but if you go and look at the actual email address, you will see that sometimes the domain is wrong. So you're not going to bother with that. If there is something which is suspicious, you delete the email. You don't forward it to anybody else. You don't need to download it. You can report it. If you receive something from a particular company asking you for some information or this, that, go to the company's website manually. Do not click on the link. And always check, again, the domain of the website they're telling you to go to. Even when you go to a website, your own website, let's say you're going to go to your bank's website, you may get malware on your computer. What that's going to do, it's going to change the DNS, the domain name server system of your computer. So if this is your PC, when you go to, let's say, www.bank.com, let's say this is your bank URL. As soon as you type that in, inside the DNS of your computer, instead of taking you here, it will redirect you instead to a hacker's website, which looks exactly the same because your computer has been infected. Okay, it's been breached. So even when you type a URL manually and you press enter and you see that website, always have a look at the URL at the top and make sure the domain is correct. Because if your computer has been infected or has been infiltrated, it could have a local DNS, a list which is directing certain accounts or certain URLs to a different website, despite the fact that you're writing the correct one. Okay, and never ever send identifiable or personal information through email, even attachments. I tell people at the school where I work at, if you're going to send information about students as an attachment, password protect the document. Do never really send the document. Send a link to the document and make sure that document is password protected. If you need to send them the password, don't use an email to send the password as well. Because if they've got access to your email account and they've got the file, then they're also going to get the password you send them. So send the password for that document using a different medium, an SMS message, for example. Okay, these are things that you can discuss. E-safety when playing games online. This is a different type of question. Never reveal personal information, use a nickname, always just be respectful, do not swear, do not shout, do not scream at people. And if somebody is not abiding by these rules or this, that, the other, then report them. All right, and this is general e-safety on all of these topics. Okay, so I'm going to give you this file. As I said, I'm going to send this in the chat. In fact, I can post you the link. I'm actually going to modify that link, but I'm going to post that link now in the chat so you can actually get access to the PDF. There it is there. I've just posted it now for you. Oi, nothing about Mexican drug cartels, please. Right, now then. So here's an answer for you. So here we need to use the 4 points. Never meet someone in person, even if they mention people you may know. Now that's a tricky one. So this is, remember, social networking sites to minimize the risk when you want to make new friends. If you're going to meet someone, make sure that you let an adult know and never go alone. Do not share any personal information about yourself or others, like school you go to, location you live, email, telephone numbers, and this, that, the other. Always have your privacy settings in your social media accounts set to private. So these are just 4 that I've selected there. We've gone over quite a few. This is the mark sheet. Again, I've posted that. I'm going to keep posting that link to that URL. So anybody wants to get that, you can. Question 5. Okay, we're going now to virtual reality and augmented reality. So a couple of questions here. Here it says virtual reality can be used when training for sports. State 2 other uses of virtual reality. Not what virtual reality is, but uses. And then the second question is discuss the impact of virtual reality on everyday life. All right. So first of all, what is virtual reality? And these are topics that I think can come up in your papers because these are the things of today. This is the technology that's being used today. So this is probably, I received an email this past week from CIE asking, you know, as educators and this, that, the other, and examiners, what we think should be included in the syllabus. So it's feedback from us teachers and this, that, the other, which kind of affect what's going to be in the new syllabus. And we're looking at everyday things. So virtual reality essentially is the use of computer technology to create simulated environment that allows the user to interact with the 3D world in a way that feels real. Now, you're not going to remember that. What you are going to remember, though, is what it actually is. You wear certain apparatus like goggles, and it places you in a fake, simulated, imaginary world. The whole world that you see is an imaginary. Now, it could be of a real place. So you could do virtual reality and be in the National History Museum in London, and you can be walking around in the Natural History Museum, but you're not actually there. Okay? Your real environment is probably your bedroom, as you can see these people here in your office. So you're put in a virtual world, a fake world, and you are able to interact with that world, 3D objects. You can read information, you can click on things, grab things, you can play games, you can do all of these things. But the main difference, the main key thing about virtual reality is that you are in a totally immersed world. You're seeing a virtual world. You're not seeing your world where you are, which is the difference with augmented reality, which is the next question. So it says here, it usually requires special equipment such as VR headsets, gloves, and controllers. It can simulate real-life places or completely imaginary worlds. Users can look around, move, and interact within the virtual space. Now, you can see this setup here, it actually requires quite a lot of space, okay, if you're going to have a fully immersive. Or this one here, you need really expensive equipment to be able to have this in a smaller space and be able to walk around in a really large room, okay? It might be gaming. So here are some examples of VR and impact on everyday life. So I've got some examples here, for example, education and training. An example is like virtual field trips, historical sites, exploring the human body 3D, going to, let's say, a live volcano. The impact is VR helps people to learn more effectively by simulating real life environments. And I've got some examples here for you. Entertainment and gaming. This is a big one, okay? So this allows people to actually interact and live the game instead of just a joystick. They're actually living the game, moving around, interacting with things. And it's like they feel that they're inside the world, interacting with this 3D model. Other examples are things like VR cinemas, concerts, let people experience events as if they were there, even from home. Communications and social interaction. Now, this was one, this is another one where you can be in a virtual world and have your own avatar and be walking around and be interacting in a social site, which is a virtual world, and talking with people and relating with people, doing business or just casual and social. And it actually gives you the feeling that you're actually there with the other person, interacting in that world. So you can be going with somebody for a tour at the Natural History Museum in London with other people from around the world, and you're walking together and talking to each other as if you're actually there without leaving your home. Workplace and remote collaboration. Again, you can do things like walkthroughs. Now, walkthroughs is a really, really good one. And I've made an example, a separate example of this one we're going to see now. So walkthroughs in business are fantastic. Imagine going to, let's say you want to buy a building, you want to buy a house, or you want to buy, I don't know, let's say an outhouse in Hawaii. Instead of you having to travel to go there and see it and experience it and see whether it's what you want or the area you want, you can actually visit the place in virtual reality, which is what we've got here. You can put on the goggles, and the people selling the house or the estate agents, if they've got the 360 model of the house, you can actually walk around in the house, interact, open the doors, walk through, see the bedrooms, see what the view's like at night, see what it's like during the day. And you can actually see and experience as best as possible that virtual world of that house before deciding whether you want to spend the money to go see it in real life. And that way you can actually shop or go look for so many other places. You can do walkthroughs at history museums. You can do walkthroughs in, let's say, things which don't exist anymore. Let's say worlds which have been destroyed or don't exist anymore. And you can do, let's say, field trips with a school class. So the benefits saves time and travel and costs. So this is a really good example with VR example if you have to give, benefits and this, that, the other. Disadvantages. It's always about the money. Show me the money. It's expensive, guys. VR is expensive. I've only ever put a headset on once in Malta when I went to do some training for some educators over there. And, I liked it. They are expensive, and that's just for the goggles and just to have a phone to sending the information. But if you're going to do gaming and real world walkthroughs and this, that, the other, it can be really expensive. Health issues. Some people experience motion sickness or dizziness from that. Same with 3D glasses. You don't have the real world interaction. So if you're doing social networking and you're in a virtual environment, meeting people, you are simply meeting them in the virtual world. You're not having real life interactions, and usually people are fake when you can't actually see them in real life. It gives you that God effect where behind the keyboard you can be anyone you want, but in actual life you're not. So you lose that skill of social interaction with people. Limited mobility and space. Not all of us have the space for an actual and the money for such equipment. Technical issues are not suitable for everyone. Disabled people or people which have got limited mobility or elderly. So here's the answer for, this very small answer. We've covered quite a bit. Gaming allows the user to experience the game as if they're actually in the game. So we only need to state. So this is a bullet point type of question. We only need to state 2 uses. Educational trips. I'm just giving a little bit more. So even if I put educational trips, I probably get the mark there, and gaming probably get the mark there because I only need to state. Okay. And this is the second question that we had on there. Discuss the impact of virtual reality on everyday life. Now, this is the 6-mark question. We're looking at discuss the impact on everyday life. So I'm giving a small example here very quickly what virtual reality is, and it allows people to experience things they would not be able to do normally because it will be too expensive or too dangerous. For example, take a tour to see the workings of a nuclear power station. You couldn't do that. You die of radiation, but you can in a virtual world to see what it's like and how it works and what the security measures are. Taking a class of students on a tour on an active volcano. Again, too dangerous. But I've got 2 marks there. Okay. Skills can be developed through practice in virtual world to improve technique, minimizing cost of practicing in the real world. So we can experience things like, I don't know, Formula One driving, flying an aeroplane, simulating flying an aeroplane through a tornado. Would you actually do that? No, you wouldn't. It would take too long before you can actually find the tornado to get the aeroplane up and go through it. But in a virtual world, you can simulate it, and that virtual reality can actually help you develop some skills and responses in case that does happen. Designs can be, so we can also have the walkthroughs where we have, where are we? We've got virtual, however, cannot, where are we? Extreme scenarios which are not likely to happen, so say like a tornado. Designs can be changed quickly for review before approval is given for a final design to be constructed. For example, if you're going to construct something, let's say a building or whatever, before you actually build a model, which takes a lot of time, you can actually make a virtual model of it and experience it in virtual reality before somebody actually goes and invests into creating this model or this building. Can I say increases creativity of people? Well, what does Buffettes always say when the student answers? My answer is, why? Are you explaining how it improves creativity? Someone just asked that. No, you haven't. So you won't get an answer. You won't get a mark for that. Now, if you explain how it improves or increases creativity, then yes. So give an explanation of how it increases creativity. That's your mark. Okay, this is important. Whenever you write something down as an answer, especially with discuss and evaluate and all these things, always say to yourself, what does that bald guy, oh yeah, I've seen the nicknames you all give me, the bald guy, the guy with the plunger on his head and all that. Just say, what does the bald guy always say? He says, why? Whenever you write something down, think of me saying, why? 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 Why are you writing that down? That's the important thing. Oh, where have I gone? Right. Designs can be changed. So where are we? Virtual reality, however, cannot replace real life experiences. So this is the disadvantage. So it's another impact. So it doesn't have to be negative or positive. It's both. Users can be addicted to virtual gaming. Now, people are addicted to gaming as it is. If it's not in the mark scheme, does it count? If it is a correct, validated response, then yes, it does count. But what you think is a valid response and what is a valid response may be different. If you give a correct answer, then absolutely. If it's valid, the examiners are trained to mark positively. So think before you answer. Always ask yourself, why? And if you got the why answered, then you've probably got a mark and you've probably got a good answer. The why guy. There's my new nickname. I'm going to put that on my next one, the why guy, because it's that why that makes the difference. You have the answers. You know why you're saying it increases people's creativity because you've thought of something. You need to write that thought down. That's the important thing. Okay, there's the mark sheet. Again, you've got the mark sheets. I'm giving you the mark sheet so you don't have to hunt for these. Question 6. Okay, explained. Now we're going to augmented reality. What is the differences between virtual reality and augmented reality? And then discuss the impact of augmented reality on everyday life. So we had virtual reality. Now we've got augmented reality. Again, this is the new thing. Now, augmented reality, yeah, wow. What's the difference? Well, virtual reality immerses us in a virtual world. A new world. It could be a world somewhere that exists somewhere else in the world, but it's not our world where we are right now. It could be a totally imaginary world, like a game. That's fine. Augmented reality takes the world you are in right now, your bedroom, your living room, outside at the shops, wherever you are, and it will put a layer on top of your world to show data, information, things you can interact with. And the fantastic example, and I'm happy to say I actually lived this with my boys, Pokemon Go. What was Pokemon Go about? You use your smartphone, it uses the camera, and you can see with the camera around your room, and all of a sudden, whoop, a Pokemon will pop up. That Pokemon is a layer on top of what your camera is seeing in your world, not a virtual world. That is what augmented reality is. So here I have some examples for you. Gaming. This one is a fantastic one. Let's say you want to, you've got now companies, furniture companies, which will allow you, what you can do, you can go and select items like a couch, open the camera on your mobile phone, and you can then just put the couch where you're thinking, yeah, I like the couch, but now that I've put it in my augmented reality software where I can see the empty space, that couch is not that good, or it doesn't fit like I thought it would fit. Maybe the colors are, and you can go try other couches or tables. You can furnish your whole room and play around with it until you got the room perfect the way you want. And then you've got the items you want before buying them and putting them in. So that's a fantastic example. You can, instead of creating a virtual reality of the Natural History Museum in London again, then where you are at home instead of at the museum itself, you can go to the museum itself, you can wear some goggles or use your phone. If you see an artifact in the museum and you want to know about it, you can use your phone. And what it will do, it will pop up information about that artifact for you if it's been programmed, if there is the augmented reality setup in the museum. So you could be walking around just pointing things at your camera, what you're looking at, and information will pop up and you can interact with that. Now, the thing with augmented reality is it's cheaper. You need less equipment. You just need a smart device like a smartphone or a tablet for a bigger screen. You don't need all the expensive equipment. The other difference is it's actually displaying your real world, not a virtual world. So here I've got a description of different scenarios for gaming, retail and furniture, maintenance and repair, healthcare, museums and education, fashion and makeup, try-on. So you can have augmented reality where you can, have your camera facing you, your front-facing camera, and you can test like different glasses or hats or makeup or whatever. Okay. Navigation, e.g. Google or Maps. Okay. So I've got for you descriptions of these things, what they are, and the impact it has on everyday life. I'm not going to read through them one by one. Where can I access these notes? I've posted the link. I'm going to post it again. Let me just put this up. Let me post the link again. And again, I'm going to be posting it at some other point as well. So there's that link again. So you can download the PDF of this. And if I update the PDF, because I made some changes, the link will work again. Okay. All right. So here are some descriptions and impacts of everyday life using AR. Right. The main disadvantages, and these are general disadvantages of AR. High cost, but it's not as expensive as virtual reality. Battery drain. It will drain your battery. I remember going around with my boys when they were younger, years and years ago, and they were looking for Pokemon, this, that, the other. They had to take we had to buy a booster to charge their phone because the battery would drain quite quickly. Requires fast internet and GPS. So either internet access through Wi-Fi or through 4G, 3G, 4G, well, 4G and 5G. 3G will probably be a bit slow. Limited device support. Now, AR often requires modern smartphones or tablets, so you can't just get any old phone and just use it. Some users may not have access to this kind of systems. Distraction and safety issues. Now, this one here is a big problem. We've already got so many people walking around on pavements, crossing the road and this, that, they are going downstairs and not looking where they're going because they're either taking selfies or they're reading things on their phone. Augmented reality amplifies this because if people were walking around, I remember someone got hit by a car because they were walking to find, I can't remember, there was a really a rare Pokemon. Was it Charizard? Is my memory serving me correctly? You can tell me in the comments if it was. I think it was Charizard. I think he found Charizard and he went across the high road to go and get Charizard to supposedly to capture it, and he got hit by a car. Okay, so it is distracting. People are focusing too much on their mobile phones and not looking where they're going. Needless to say, how many people are tripping over things. Okay, this slide here is a comparison. Does my PDF cover everything? No, the PDF is what I've got here, the 13 questions that I'm doing, guys. So comparing virtual reality and augmented reality. Here is a table for you to have a look at. It talks about the environment, the devices used, user awareness, and interaction level. So this is a really easy table just by looking at it. So if we just take one, let's say the device used, virtual reality requires a VR headset. Augmented reality requires a smartphone, tablets, or AR glasses. You know, smartphones and tablets people have normally got. Not everybody, we're not going to go down that path right now, but in general, most people have some kind of smart device. The interaction level, again, with virtual reality, it's very, very high because everything is in a virtual world. You're interacting with everything. Whereas with augmented reality, it's limited. You're only interacting with certain things that pop up, which are in your actual world. Think about going to a natural history museum and just using your phone to point at something and it will give you information about it. It's a good marketing product, by the way. There's a whiskey company that actually, they've got a QR code on the box of their whiskey bottle. And when you open your camera, it will open up the augmented reality. And I think one of the founders or whatever will come out and will talk to you about that whiskey, when it was made, how it's made, and this, that, the other. So yeah, fantastic little advertising tool as well. So here's the first part of that question. We've got here, virtual reality replaces the real world with a simulated one and requires the use of headsets. Augmented reality places digital overlays on top of the real world and simply requires a smart device with a camera. You can use other things, but the most basic form is this. The long answer question. This is to do the discussion again, the impact of augmented on everyday life. So again, we start off by saying what AR, augmented reality is. Users see different, for example, users, we've got a wide range of users. So users see different furniture placed in their homes before deciding on what to purchase. They can have overlays on maps, can provide navigation information and warnings, making traveling easier and safer. So if you look at navigation systems, they can actually create an overlay showing you where there's traffic or if a road is closed and this, that, the other, in the actual map. AR is used in museums or education where interactive images and text can be placed on items in the real world, providing information about items without need. So this is basically everything I've gone through and put it together as a little paragraph. Again, probably a little bit more than needed, but I'd rather give you a more complete answer. You can have guided tours of augmented reality. So if you're going, like if you go to Rome and they take you for a round, let's say in the Sistine Chapel, instead, the guide will talk to you and tell you, but you could also have your augmented reality on your phone and just point at things and see and get information about different items, okay, or buildings. Interactions with real humans is reduced and on-screen information can be distracting, okay? So it says here, AR, however, does have its disadvantage. So again, interaction with humans, all of these devices, all of these things we do, it's reducing our social networking skills in person. Generally used with smartphone in everyday life, it can reduce the user's awareness of surroundings while looking at the screen, increasing the risk of accidents. And we've discussed this. So whether it's driving or whether it's walking around and looking for Pokemons or whatever else that you're looking for when you're using augmented reality on your phone, it will distract you from your surroundings. And here again are the mark sheets. And it says 6 from here. Again, please, these are just tips given to the examiners so that they can identify things in your answer, your discussion answer, not a bullet point. I'm just trying to see some of these comments. It's actually interesting, some of your comments there. Right, number 7. All right, so here we're going to go down to something which normally pops up, a question that pops up quite oftenly in different forms. Okay, so I've put something together for you which should be able to answer any form of the question. So it talks about a college principal, and again, say, do I need to read this part? Yes, this is the scenario which bases the whole foundation of your answer. So it's talking about college principals, so we're talking about schools, has decided that students can use mobile devices to take notes in lessons. Some students use laptop computers while others use smartphones. So this is this important part there. Describe the benefits and drawbacks of using laptop computers rather than smartphones for this Purpose. What is the purpose? To take notes. So I need to identify the purpose. And I want the benefits and drawbacks of using laptop computers or smartphones. That's the one question. This is the other question because it's a two-part question. It then says there are safety issues related to bringing laptop computers into the college. The network manager has decided to produce a paper-based certificate for students to prove that their laptop computer is safe to use. This is a very, very badly worded question. It's badly worded because they want to produce a certificate. Describe the main features that should be considered for the design of the city. And this is the keyword that's going to guide you into what you have to do. So let's tackle the first question first. Here I've got for you on this slide here, the different types of computers. Smartphones, phablets, tablets. A phablet is a device which is in between a smartphone and a tablet. So it's slightly bigger than a smartphone. It's smaller than a tablet, but it has the processing power of a smartphone. Okay, so it's an in-between. So whatever you can do, let's say with a smartphone, you can do with your phablet, and whatever you can practically do, everything you can do with your tablet, you can do with the phablet. The main differences are going to be the screen size. Then you've got laptops and desktop computers. Now then, we're going to move on to this. So let's have a look and see what I've got for you. Now, I've put together a table for you which identifies the different devices: laptop, smartphone, phablet, tablet, desktop, PC, and the things that we can compare them with. Things like battery life. These are things that you should be able to identify to be able to compare devices. The battery life, how portable it is, the screen size, the storage capacity, the input method, connectivity, that would be connectivity to the internet or a network, processing power, software compatibility, camera quality, cost, and best for. The really important ones I would generally say are that one, that one, that one, that one, yes. I would also go down to connectivity. You're going to say, well, aren't they all important? Well, yes, they are, but in any question, you're not asked to identify everything. Okay. Camera quality or use. Cost. I try to get my students to avoid the term of cost. Why? Because they say it's more expensive. And what is my new nickname, guys? Why? What do you mean it's more expensive? What is more expensive? The phablet over the tablet over the laptop, the smartphone over the tablet, the desktop over the laptop. It's very hard to put your finger on it. So unless you've got something which is really, really clear cut to discuss, then avoid it. So cost is usually one that I tend to avoid. So I've got quite a few things here for you. So if we just take very quickly something like just compare the smartphone to a tablet, because a phablet, the only differences are going to be really from a phone and a tablet is going to be the size of the screen for the tablet is bigger. The phablet is smaller, but it's bigger to a smartphone. However, the battery life is the same as that of a smartphone. So it's got higher battery life than what a tablet would be. Now, do you need to know all of these things and the numbers? Absolutely not. But you have to have an understanding of them. So when they give you a scenario, you're able to identify things and put them in that discussion question. So any question that you get where you have to decide what is the best device, or between two devices, discuss the advantages and disadvantages for a scenario, or any question to do with devices, these are the things that you have to focus on. How portable must the device be? We've seen a question in the past where it says you're going to be recording, I don't know, say the life of monkeys or gorillas in the jungle. What would be the best device to take? Well, a desktop is definitely not going to be the one. You need something which is portable. You're going to be out there for a long time, so you need something which has a good battery life. You need something that you're going to be able to take pictures quickly and clearly. You need something which will last, you can charge easily in the jungle, so using a battery pack. The screen size is not really that important. You can just use it to take some very, very small notes so that you can remember when you go back to your base camp to write your notes using a laptop, let's say. So something like this, I would say something like a smartphone. It gives you internet connections through 3G, 4G. It has a good camera. It's very portable, great battery life, and you can charge it with a very small battery charger to get an extended battery life. You've got notepads so you can write things. You can touch draw as well on a small screen, yes, but you can make simple notes. So when you go back, you can write things up on your desktop or on your laptop. Okay, so you have to think of things like how portable is it? What is the battery life? Is there availability for charging, or is there a power outlet where you're going to be using it? Do you need to take pictures? Do you need to take front-facing and rear-facing pictures to make it easier to take the picture? Is the screen size important? Are you going to be doing detailed diagrams and you need something bigger, probably a tablet? Does it have to have touchscreen requirements? Well, let's say you're using augmented reality, then yes, you need touchscreen. Does the processing power matter? Well, if you're using software like a computer and a laptop does, then yes, it does. If you're able to use applications, then you're good with a tablet, a smartphone, or a phablet. Keyboard requirements. Are you going to be doing a lot of typing? Then you need a dedicated keyboard, a decent keyboard. So you're looking at a laptop or a desktop. Worst case, but I wouldn't advise it so much. So probably you won't have a question like is, let's say have an external keyboard for your tablet. Okay, as long as you say why, you have to give the reason why. Okay, general rules. Now, this is the second question. Okay, so if we just go to answering this first question first. So the benefits are I've got laptops, unlike smartphones, have a larger screen and a physical keyboard, making it easier to type and see your screen while making notes. So remember, this is to do with students taking notes, okay, laptops over using smartphones. We need to describe the benefits and drawbacks. Software on laptops is generally more powerful and often, offer more features than applications found on smartphones. However, battery life on the laptop is less. So you may not have a full school day using your laptop. You're going to need to charge it. Can you charge it? No. Your smartphone, though, will last. Smartphones have a longer battery life and can easily be charged from a portable power bank if you need more power. Smartphones are more portable, so you don't have a big laptop and a charging cable that you're carrying in your backpack. You have it in your back pocket. It's easier to take pictures. A lot of students are taking pictures of notes and screenshots these days. So it's easier than with a laptop. Most laptops don't have a rear-facing camera. And you could also record video very easily. So there are advantages and disadvantages. Now for this question, where you're going to design the certificate. So let's have a look and see what I've given you here. Where it says designing the certificate, this is the same for everything. They may ask you to design a certificate. They may ask you to design a form. They may ask you a question on databases in the theory saying you're creating a form to enter data into your electronic database. The data you're collecting are people's first name, last name, date of birth, whether their gender and this, that. Design the form or explain how you would design the form. The answer is always the same. Okay? Always the same. For example, if this is the size of my form, I want to make sure I make good use of the white space. I don't want to put all the questions here and have all this white space here empty. That's bad design. Secondly, the text should be easily read and have good contrast. So don't use blue paper with blue ink. White paper, black ink, it has to have good contrast. Put the common items together. So if you've got the person's first name and last name up here, don't ask for their address down here. Put all the personal details in one section. Okay, so you could have all personal details here. You could have all educational details, let's say here. You could put a picture of them there. That's giving you good space. Now, Okay, anyway. Good use of white space. We said that text boxes should be appropriately sized. What does this mean? If you're asking for somebody to put their date, or what date of birth, their first name, and you put the text box this big, that, okay, first thing they probably know. If they only needs this much space, don't put the text box that big. If you're putting, for example, enter your date of birth, you don't need to put a text box which is this big. You can just put a text box which is this big. Okay, so the size of the text boxes is important because they can cause confusion. Use tick boxes. So this is good when we're doing data validation. So we can have options or radio buttons like when you did with paper 2, where the person will tick what they want. Okay, that saves errors. You can have, if it's an electronic form, you can have a drop-down list box where there's a list that will drop down, that little arrow that you get there, and they select the item they want. With the certificate, it's paper-based. So again, make good use of the white space. Put common details, group them together. Make sure that you can have things like tick boxes to select items so they don't have to write anything. The colors should not be overused, but you can use them to organize the form, and you can include tips to help users complete them. So if this is the date here, you could put, let's say in text here, DD MMYY to make sure they enter the date here in the correct format. Okay. Now, electronic forms, you can also add navigation and controls. So if this was an electronic form that you're designing on paper that you're going to create electronically, let's say in Access, you can put, for example, a go to next button, a go to previous button, and you could put, I don't know, add new button or whatever. They're probably good. So this is the general rule for creating any form, whether it's electronic or paper. And that's the answer here. The certificate should use clear and easy to read font, contrast with any background color used. The form should group common data like personal details and device information to make it easy to read and find required information. Boxes that students will fill in should be big enough to fit the required data, but not too big. Use tick boxes. Can be used to select items to avoid spelling mistakes. The form can include tips to help students fill in the form. There's more than 4 marks there, but you get the idea. The point was to try and understand that it's a form that you have to design. Question 8, where are we? I was thinking this was going to go about 2 hours. I think we're going to be just in time. Can we mention font for this? Well, you're talking about different things there. I'm focusing on here. Okay, explain why data protection. Oh, here we go. This is, again, very, very hot topic. Data legislation, copyright legislation. You have to know these things. From these questions I'm going over, you're definitely going to get at least 2 questions which are related to this, for sure, if not more. Okay? So that's a good percentage. That's like about 15, 16% of the paper, which is excellent. So you have to understand what data legislation is and data protection is. So I've got some material here for you. These are laws that regulate and govern the collection, storage, use, and sharing of personal and sensitive data to protect individuals, privacy, and ensure responsible data handling. What does this mean? You see, in Europe, and this is something which has come up in Europe, has become a massive, massive thing in all countries in the EU, the Data Protection Act. Now, the Data Protection Act is laws and regulations which apply to companies which collect data. So you need to try and relate this to something you know. Let's take your school, for example. Those of you that go to school, that school has some information about you. So when you are applying to go to a school, whether it's a public state school or private school, you need to do an application. On that application, they ask for some data. So here's some data they may ask for. Your first name, your last name, your date of birth. Is this information that they need for you to be enrolled at the school? Absolutely. Do they need information about your guardians or your parents? Well, yes. If they need to contact someone about you, they need that information. Do they need to know what job your parents do? No, they don't need that information for you to apply to go to the school. So they shouldn't be asking these questions. Does that make sense? So one rule when it comes to data legislation is they should only be collecting the data which is needed for the purpose that the application or the data is being collected. They shouldn't be asking for more data, because then it could be used wrongfully. Then, how is this data? Who has access to this data? Anybody and everybody? Or is the data, let's say, controlled with controlled access? What's the data path from the time you do an application to your school? What happens to that data? Who does it go to? Where does it end up? Who has access to it? These are rules which have to be followed by companies. If you leave the school, what happens to your data? Do they keep it or do they have to delete it? If you want to see what data that your school has about you, do you have the right to ask for that data? Well, yes, you do. And they have to give it to you. Okay, so this is what data legislation is all about. The collection, the storage of data, how that data is used, who has access to it. So here I've put the principle, why it's required, and an ICT example. For example, data must be collected and used fairly and lawfully. What does this mean? To protect individuals from unethical or secretive data collection and misuse. In other words, they should only collect the data which is required. ICT example, a social media application must inform users why it collects their location, e.g. for personalized content. You know, sometimes when you open an application, it says, this application wants to use your location. Do you allow it? Yes or no? They have to ask you that. They can't do that by default. This is why. This is data protection. Your location is personal data to you. Data must only be used for the stated purpose. So if they say we're collecting this data so that we know who you are, we can contact your parents or know if you have any allergies or any other medical issues so that we can help you if needed, that's what it's for. They're not allowed to sell this information so that they can sell it to advertising companies so that they can send advertising material to them. That's illegal. They have to say why it's being used. So I'm not going to go through all of these. I'm going to go through 1 or 2 more of these. Data must not be kept longer than necessary. Oops, come back. So this is, again, important one. So if the data that's being collected is, let's say they collect your data for a competition or something like that, and that competition is over, there's no need for them to keep your data anymore, unless that competition is going to run again the next year and you've allowed them to keep it for the next year. So this minimizes the risk of your data being leaked, or if their system gets hacked, your data should not still be on there if it's not needed. So school must delete or archive student information after a defined retention period like 5 years. So you can ask your school, how long do you keep my data after I've left? They have to tell you. And they can only keep it longer if there is any specific reason why. There could be a legal reason why. Okay? Data must be kept secure, and how it's kept secure and maintained, the security is maintained, has to be, there has to be some kind of regulations in that company or that school. So different levels of access and who can access this has to be a path of where that data goes and who has access to it. These things have to then be recorded. And if there is a breach of data, the company is legally obliged to report this breach of data. And there could be big fines. Okay, so this is what data protection legislation is all about. Your data being protected. So here's the answer. Data legislation is required so that companies have clear guidelines on how data they collect is managed. So this is not about you. Data legislation is for the companies or the people that are collecting the data. They have to know so that they are not responsible afterwards to pay big fines because they have not complied with the law. So they need to know how they manage and collect this data so that they meet the legal requirements. And that's what it's about. So they have to have clear guidelines how the data is collected, managed, stored, and accessed to prevent personal data from being misused, leaked, or hacked. That's your complete answer, and there's more marks there. It's required to protect the rights of the owners. The owners are the people who own the personal data. For example, your first name, your last name, and your date of birth belongs to you. That's your data. So it's there to protect your information not being leaked and give you the control of the data being stored and to give you the rights to be able to ask for that data. Okay, that's the mark sheet. I hope that's cleared a few things up because I was getting a lot of questions about copyright legislation and data legislation. And here we have, here's another tricky one. Again, today's world, the nickname is GOAT of ICT. Okay, I'm going to start going, bah. I'll have to do a thumbnail at some point with me looking like, I'll probably do like a merged picture kind of thing. What's it called? I've forgotten the name now. Of me merged together with a goat, something like that. Anyway, let's go to what are the disadvantages of using web conferencing rather than video conferencing. So the first thing that we need to see here is it's a discuss question. It's 6 marks. And you're going to say, well, if you look at the books, they're not going to give you 6 marks, which is why I've got the resources for you. So here is the 3-4 things that you need to know about. You have web conferencing. Web conferencing is primarily used for screen share presentations and file sharing. We're going to discuss this in a little bit more detail now. Okay. Right. I'm seeing something here about racism here and this, that, the other. I better not see anything like that because I will be deleting you and muting you permanently from my channel, not just from the live. If anybody is being rude, I'm going to go through the chats afterwards. And if anybody has put anything rude, anything racist or anything like that, I'm not looking at the chat. No, guys. And in fact, I might even close the chat if this continues. But if anyone does put anything like that, I'm going to block you from my channel. Trust me, my channel is here to support everybody. It's not for me. It's not to support me. It's for me to support all of you. So it's Joe. Send me the username and I will check it up. Joe, if it is you, you better send a sincere apology right now, or else I will block you from my channel. All right, so I'm going to continue. Let me just see what time we're on here. 6:39, so 1 hour 40. Okay, so video conferencing. This is primarily used for video. The name, let me just write that down for a sec. All right. So there's Indian hate. Okay, guys, as I said, I'm going to be going through, and if I do see any hate comments and this, that, the other, I will be blocking people from the channel, and that's going to be permanent. Secondly, as I said, guys, people hating, it's because they're jealous of you. That's just the true fact. Haters are like babies. The more attention you give them, the more they cry and the more they complain. Ignore them, and they're quiet again. So you just pay no attention to. Just treat them like little babies. That's all I have to say about that. Okay. Okay. Joel Danielson. So as I said, if you have put any hate comments out there, you better come back with a real apology. Otherwise, I will be blocking you. All right. So here we go. The next one is webcast, primarily used for audio and video. Audience does not interact. Okay. So the audience does not interact with the webcast. And then we've got webinar, primarily audio and video. Audience interacts with the presenter. So this is just a brief outline. Let's have a look. This is web conferencing. So with a web conference, we can see that people can get together in like a Teams meeting. You probably all know a little bit about Teams and this, that, the other. And they can interact. The whole point is on web conferencing to do where everybody, all the participants can share documents, they can present, they can chat, they can talk and screen content. We don't normally have too many people in a web conference, okay? But it usually has these features of screen sharing, slide presentation, chat, file sharing, so on and so forth. Think of an example. A teacher uses web conferencing software to deliver a presentation to students who are attending the lesson remotely. That's a web conference. Video conferencing. Now, this is something totally different. Video conferencing, think about having a meeting. Let's say your teachers are going to have a meeting to discuss performance, whatever. This is where video conferencing comes in. If there are 2 sites or multiple sites across the world, you want to have all the participants to be able to talk to each other, okay, and see each other. Now, video conferencing is all about the video concept in real time. And you can see in this picture here, video conferencing usually includes things like big screen TVs so that we can see participants and see displays. We have specialist equipment with microphones and cameras. These cameras, many times, what they will do when somebody talks, it has a talker identifier and it zooms in on that person. So these people here, they actually see the person in this meeting room and it focuses on that person. We normally have like a tablet or control unit here to set up the meeting, and we normally have microphones set up on the desk, along the desk, depending on how big the conference room is, so that everybody can be heard clearly. So video conferencing is all about creating an environment where it's like everybody is sitting together at the same table, despite people being in remote locations. It usually requires more specialist equipment. It's focused primarily on video and audio, and it normally requires things like big screen TV. Whereas a web conference, you're going to do this on a small screen on your mobile phone, for example, or this, that, the other. Now, fisheye lenses and this, that, the other, you don't need to go into that detail. You just need the basics. So web conferencing, this is for sharing slides, documents, this, that, the other. You don't normally have specialist equipment, and you can have everybody joining, seeing and talking, but it's not specifically for meetings. All right. Video conferencing we talked about. What is a webcast? A webcast is something like what we're doing right now. This is a webcast. It's a live stream, but essentially what we've got, I've got the camera here. I've got my device, and I'm casting everything that my video and audio is recording here to the rest of the world, which is you guys, like India, Pakistan, Dubai, all these places. Okay, so this is what a webcast is. It's usually one way. You guys here can't normally interact with me. If you can, it's usually limited, like what you've got here with the chat. You can't share your screen. You can't share your documents or this, that, the other. So that's what a webcast. You're casting out to the web. It's usually one place, one way. A webinar. Okay. This is like an online training session. It's like a webcast, but you've got a little bit more interaction from the users. So you normally got chats, questions and answers, and it's usually two-way communication. So the others can communicate with you as well. They can interact with the presenter, like me, by asking questions or joining discussions. So it's more like a training thing, where the other people can communicate with the presenter. You normally only have one presenter. The difference with web conferencing is you have multiple people that might be presenting and this, that, the other. Whereas with a webinar, it's usually the one person that's presenting and other people can interact with them. So here are some, I've put a table here for you with the different types. that you can have a look at. What web conferencing is, video conferencing, webcast, and webinar. The main aim, not the, but a main purpose. If video is included, we can see video is included in all of these. What it's used for, presenters and audience, how many presenters do we normally have in the audience, and the audience interaction. So this just makes it a bit easier for you. One table just to have a look at and get a much clearer picture on what the differences are. Okay, so a quick question, guys. Has this whole issue with what was coming up before with racism, has that stopped? Just give me a yes or a no there, because I would like to know whether I'm going to continue this or not. Okay. All right. So here's the answer. Here we go. So this was to do advantages and disadvantages of web conferences and video conferencing. Yes, thank you guys. Good. And as always, even on my channel, if things like that, or you feel that you're being victimized in any way at all, send me a message. You can send me an email. My email is public, and I will look into it, and I will ban people from being able to write comments from the channel. Okay, so here's the answer. Discuss the advantage and disadvantage of using web conferences. So we've got here web conferencing and video conferencing. So we said video conferencing is all about videos, uses more specialist equipment, probably costs more to set up. Its primary purpose is for videos, for video streaming and audio so that people can interact as if they're in a meeting. Web conferencing is more about sharing files, documents, and this, that, the other. And you normally have quite a few presenters. Okay. Now I've got here, what is it? So web conferencing will be easier to use compared to video conferencing because there's less specialist equipment. People participating in the web conference can be doing other things. Yeah, this is the other thing as well. With a web conference, if you don't have your camera on, you could be doing other things because it's not necessary in a web conference that the participants are watching. Remember, web conference, you've got that one person and who's presenting. If you were doing online lessons during COVID, then a lot of you were, you log in, you have your camera off and you're pretending that you're there, but you're not actually there. So that's one disadvantage. You don't know whether participants are actually paying attention, whether they're participating. And as there's no video, then issues like video freezing or buffering is not an issue. So since there's no video in a web conference from the participants that are watching, then it's not so much of an issue. So anyway, there's the answer. I'm going to post again the link to this resource because I'm going to be putting it again afterwards. But there's the link to the resource again. So you can have a look at the answer. And the mark sheet. Question 10, getting close. Time-wise, we're doing pretty good. AI, artificial intelligence, again, a very, very, very big thing everywhere, worldwide, whether it's in business, whether it's in schools, whether it's in absolutely everything. AI is the topic. So we can assume we're going to have a question on AI. That's not a guarantee, but I would assume there probably would be because it's what's very, very hot. So the questions are: state what is meant by artificial intelligence and evaluate the impact of AI in the use of social media. Not for anything, but for social media. Very important because here we now have the issue where we have to understand what the question is. Artificial intelligence, well, it's in the title, isn't it? It's artificial intelligence. What is intelligence? Well, what we have between our ears, hopefully. The way that what makes us human, our intelligence. And if it's artificial, then it's something which is trying to mimic our intelligence. So it's computers that can simulate human intelligence, like our decision making, our problem solving, our decisions based on previous decisions and outcomes. What did we do last time? We touched the kettle and we burnt our finger. And it was very hot. So the next time we go touch the kettle, we think, hang on, last time I burnt my hand. Let me check carefully this time if it's hot. See, we learn from previous actions, reactions, and from those results. And that's a very, very, very big part of AI. The whole point of it learning based on other decisions. So when AI gives you a response to a question that you ask and it says, did you find this answer useful? What you're actually doing by responding to that, you're improving AI. You're improving that engine. Because if you say no, then it will not give a similar answer again in the future. It will go and see where people have said yes to similar answers, and it will use those answers and build up on those. So, the impact of AI. Do I love you? Ooh. In a way of not knowing you and this, yeah, I do love all my students, and I do consider all of you guys my students. Now, impact of AI in different contexts. So we've got the three main things that you could be asked on. School, which is something that you know about. The workplace, it could be any work environment, and your social media. All right, so I've got the positive and the negative impacts. For schools, well, we all know the problem. Students, instead of actually reading a book and knowing how to use a book or trying to find information, decipher information and learn, they use AI to get responses. And they don't even read the answer. Guys, come on. Read what it's giving you. Learn it at least. Automated grading, that saves a lot of time for teachers. That's absolutely fantastic. In fact, content creation, most of your teachers now are using content created AI to produce things like worksheets, question papers, everything. I've created some of this content, but none of it by just copy pasting it. But some of the content that I've used here, I've used to reword. Remember, I'm dyslexic. I've said this many times. So me putting things together in a text context is hard. So I've used AI to modify my text and the understanding of the English I'm using. But the negative things are, we rely too much on artificial intelligence. It reduces teacher-student interaction because students, instead of asking their teachers for help and getting a definitive, focused answer, they will go to AI because it's usually faster and the teacher isn't there 24/7. Data privacy concerns with student info. Now, all of this information that you're doing, it's being recorded somewhere. Your information is being recorded. So that is a bit of an issue, a tricky one. Workplace, increased productivity, automated repetitive tasks, better decision making. You're going to say, why is it better? Well, if you think about it, if you want to make a decision based on, let's say, 100 different documents that have been put together with minutes of 100 meetings in the past, and you now want to go and see an analysis or trend or make a decision, it's easier to get AI to quickly get all those documents and analyze it and come back with a pattern rather than you going through that pattern. So that's one thing. Chatbots handle customer service 24/7. I use chatbots. I give chatbots to my students. I get the material from the 0417 IGCSE. I put it into a chatbot, train the chatbot on the syllabus, and then give them the chatbots on each chapter. So if I'm not there, they want to ask a question, they can use the chatbot, and I know that the answers they get are based on the syllabus, and it's not a general answer from ChatGPT. So chatbots are great as well. They're great for answering simple questions for companies. So instead of having a receptionist answer everything and every single question, or a technician or a technical person, you can get chatbots to answer most of the questions. And if it hasn't resolved the problem or answered the question, then they can get through to a person. So you can use less employees, which can be an advantage or the disadvantage. Job losses. Reduce human oversight in critical decisions. So, it can only go based on experiences or data that already exists, whereas humans can base decisions on actual events at that time. Okay. If somebody's going to lose their job, you might have to reskill them in another job, for example. So that's going to cost money, and you're going to have to reskill workers. You can't just sack everybody. Can I make a live revision for all chapters? No, sorry. All chapters, 10 chapters, that will take something like trying to do the whole syllabus, the theory syllabus, in what? 2-3 hours? It's not possible. There are too many scenarios and different things around it. So a lot of the things in the different chapters that you got, guys, is just understanding and memory. The questions I'm going through are the ones that you have to actually think about and understand how to answer questions, and things that you won't find easily in the book. These things are usually, these questions are down to your own experiences. You answer from your experience. You have to dig into your life to be able to answer these questions. It's not about, let's say, what storage device would you use, let's say, an SSD for? You know, that's a clear-cut answer. These are questions that you have to relate your experiences to be able to answer, which is why I'm focusing on them. This is why these questions have so many marks. Okay, now AI, this isn't that kind of question, but because AI is very hot, more than likely it's going to be included, I'm thinking. So having a good understanding of AI and its impact, positive and negative, is good. So this is just basically what AI is. So here we evaluate the impact in social media. Now, I've already given you this in the table. Here, social media, the impact. Okay, so that's there, and this is the disadvantages. So this is what I'm going to have in my answer as well. You're on social media and then you see advertisement and you say, wow, look at that. That's exactly what I was going to look for. How does it know? All of these social media sites, they're collecting all this information. If you've got your location services enabled, where you are, where you go. Everything that you search for on Google is recorded. And if it's under your profile, then your patterns are recorded. Your age is probably identified. So it's going to direct marketing and advertisements custom made based on your characteristics that it's recorded. That's what AI does. It gets all that data, analyzes it, sees what other people which have the same traits as you purchase or look for, and creates the same kind of thing for you. And that's where AI comes into social networking. So it helps filter spam. So if people are using social media to spam things or to do, let's say, false advertising, this, that, the other, those traits can be identified, they can be filtered. And the other thing, you get automatic tagging of friends in AI. So if you've got a picture, instead of you going around tagging each face one by one, if they're in your friends, face recognition can actually tag people straight away without any issue. Okay, so it saves you time. The disadvantage is bots can give misinformation. With teachers, we always say, and I'm going to take this down to my friend George Gakufa's wife, Helen Gakufa. She's also a fantastic educator. And she taught me a term, dog feeding. So when teachers are producing things, let's say using AI, you can't just give it to students as if you know it's correct. You have to check it. So if you create a quiz using AI, you have to test the quiz yourself. You have to go through it and make sure everything's correct. Otherwise, it's called dog feeding. Dog feeding, essentially, you don't taste the dog's food before you feed it to them. You put the food in, you give it to the dog. You don't want to do that with students when you're preparing material. You need to read it. You need to check it. Check and make sure it's correct before you give it out. And, you know, bots and AI generators can generate mistakes. So you need to be checking these things. That's a disadvantage. And you've also got privacy issues from AI analyzing user data. When you're paying for accounts for AI, your data is there, your patterns, your behavior, your searches, they're going to be used to improve that AI. That is an issue as far as data privacy is concerned. Okay, so I've got here for the question, by analyzing a human's behavior in social media site, behavior like comments, searches, and posts, AI can be used to personalize ads which are presented to the user so that they are more meaningful. So these ads that you get, instead of you just skipping through all the time, sometimes, you know, you think, that's kind of interesting. How did it know? You don't get my aura. I've never had my aura color checked, so I don't know what it is. Okay, so this can be a method to improve user experience, but also to encourage users to purchase items which are relevant to their searches. So if you're searching for certain things, then by suggesting items for you to buy which are related to your searches, there's a higher chance that you are going to purchase something. And as a knock-on effect, if you are purchasing something, then they will be able to charge more for advertising those items, because that method of advertising is causing revenue for that company. So the more that they make, the more they're willing to pay for ads. Another impact is the growing connections by suggesting possible friends. I've had a friend which I haven't seen for over 25, 30 years. 30 years, and it was suggested to me as a friend. And I was thinking, wow, isn't it amazing? And, we connected again after so many years, and it was awesome to catch up. But I would not have made that connection. No way. I actually forgot about that connection for all these years. And it's just amazing, because all the interactions of who your friends are and the friends of your friends and this, that, it can actually make links. Which schools you went to, your interests. So a common interest. It's also good, things like LinkedIn. Now, you don't want to use brand names, but LinkedIn may suggest people for roles, for jobs, based on what they post and what the credentials and their CV is, to people that are looking to employ somebody. So all of these AI engines, they are fantastic, but they do have their disadvantages, as we said. 11. Okay, so here now we've got another legislation which we're going to have a look at, or this is to do with authentication. So the first question here is about using a physical token. So a student needs to ensure her data is kept safe. When the student logs into the university computer, a physical token is used as an authentication method. What is it? Then the next question is, she's received an email with an attachment. She needs to download the attachment and store it on her disk. Describe the steps the student needs to take to ensure her data is kept safe when she downloads the attachment. Let's look at the data for the first question. The links for the, I'll send the link again. People asking for this. I'm going to send the link to this PDF again right now. There it is. There. Okay, so you can download the PDF of everything that I'm using now. All right, so the first question is related to all of this. These things, not that. Let's go back. Where am I? That one. So here we go. These are physical tokens or security tokens. And over here, this is to do with downloading files. What do? We need some malware protection software. Okay, malware is anything. Are you Turkish, Cyprus, or Greek Cyprus? I'm Greek Cypriot. If I may, absolutely, you may ask. Right. So essentially, this first question is this here. I had one of these. Right. So this basically deals with this. So let me just show you. We now have, as two-factor authentication, we got things like Authenticator. So let me open one that I've got here. All right. So let's do this one. Something which isn't. Okay, so I'm just going to hide that top part there. Okay, so you can see here that, can you? That number there, that's a number which changes every 30 seconds. That's my, it's coming and going, okay? So that's basically my authenticator. And what that would do, when I go to sign into whatever device that is, it asks me for a code, my two-factor authentication. So I go to my application, I see the number that's displaying currently, I type it in, and wow, there it is. And after 30 seconds, that number will change. So if I take too long, I'm going to have to put the new number in. These security tokens, this is what we used before we had applications. This is when we had those bricks for phones. We didn't have applications on phones. Our phones were actually phones. Yes, you can. I am going to post this video at some point. I'm going to download it and post it, the whole thing, as a video afterwards. And no, I don't teach A-level. I used to. Stopped. Right, let's continue with this. So what you would do when you were asked to enter the security number, you will press this button here or it would display on this screen this number, and this was like your authenticator, your 2FA. Okay, and that's a physical token. The physical token could be something like a USB, which essentially means that when you want to access the computer, if you don't plug this USB into the device, which has some kind of code encrypted on it or some kind of security key encrypted on it, then your device will not give you access. So there are devices where, or there were also software where you had to have a security dongle or a physical token. So if you were to purchase some software, for example, you tried to open it, you had to have something plugged into your computer for that software to work. Okay. And the other type of physical token that we have now are things like smart cards, where you got a smart card with that little chip. Okay, so this chip has like some information on there, and you have to plug in the card for something to unload. And the whole point of this is to authenticate that you are the person you say you are. Okay, and not just say, oh, take my word for it, I know the password, it's okay. So you had to have something extra. So that's what physical tokens are. So here are different authentication methods. And again, I'm going further into this thing because authentication is another big problem. Remember, data protection, it requires authentication as well. So we've got username and password. We've got the description and example. Biometric authentication. Biometric authentication is absolutely anything which uses your physical characteristics of your body or your actions or your character to identify your fingerprint, a retina scan, face scan, which is what a lot of you use your phones to unlock them with face scanners, or a fingerprint scanner. There you go. I've got a fingerprint scanner there. So when I put my finger on that, it's going to scan my finger, and there you go, it opens up. So these are biometrics. Two-factor authentication, well, we've talked about that just now. We have an application which will give you a number, that type of two-factor authentication, or it might send the code to your phone. Smart cards and ID badges. So you may have a smart card or an ID badge. So if you put your username and password, you might have to scan your card as well to authenticate you. It might be a student card, it might be a staff card, but beyond you just putting a username and password, you might have to have that card as well to authenticate yourself. And security tokens, well, we've seen pictures of them, and we've got here examples of how these things can be used. So for this next question, if we look at the answer for here, a physical device, what is meant by physical token? It's a physical device or hardware. So it's something which is physical. That word physical token says it all, that one there. Produces a single-use code used to authenticate the user. It provides an extra layer of security beyond that of a username and password. That's basically what it is. So these two marks here, there's that mark sheet there. So it's a physical token. It authorizes, it generates a code. It's just an extra layer of security. This other question that we had, this one, describe the student, the steps the student needs to take to ensure data is kept safe when downloading. So I'm going to give you the general rules of anything, whether you're downloading an attachment, downloading a file from the internet, from email, whether you're accessing a file or opening a file from a USB, or absolutely anything. This is the rules that you're going to follow for a question like this. Okay, first of all, what are the implications? The implications are you may get infected. You may install malware on your device if you download and open something, or put a USB stick in when open a file which somebody else gave to you. You may get malware if you download something from the internet. So all of these can be related to any scenario. So whether you're downloading from the internet, attachment from email, USB stick, here's the process. If you don't have malware, anti-malware installed, you need to install it. 1. After you've installed it, you need to make sure the malware is updated. There's different kinds of malware that come out every single day, and you need to keep your malware updated so it can identify the more recent threats. Then you can set up your anti-malware to automatically check all files that you download, all files that you open. All files that you open may make your device go a bit slow, but that's fine. This is for an exam question answer. It doesn't matter if your device is going to work slow. I don't think anybody has scanning of every single file. Scanning your emails and all the attachments automatically. Then scan the email. If the downloaded file is identified to have some kind of malware, delete the email and attachment immediately. If it is not, you can download it. After you've downloaded it, then you can scan it again. If something's found, you can delete it. And if it's not, then you can open it. This is general rules for anything. Okay, so they're there. Again, it's not something that you have to read and remember. These are things that you already know. You just need to be reminded of them. I've seen 1 or 2 spelling mistakes there, so I'm just going to correct that. Have I? Where is it? I've got something here, anti-malware. So anyway, you can, here, download, file, download. I will fix that later. That one there. Scan the email, file down, the email or the file downloaded. Anyway, so the answer to that, I've got this one here. It's this process. She needs to make sure that she has anti-malware or antivirus software installed. If not, download it, install it, make sure it's up to date, so on and so forth. Everything I've just explained now. Okay, but you have to make sure that your answer is based on the downloaded attachment from an email. All right, so you need to set it up to scan the email, download the attachment, scan the file, so on and so forth. Mark sheet. Number 12, second from last one. We're doing good. State 2 methods that software producers use to enforce software copyright legislation. Do I hate this one? I hate this one. Do you know why? Let me show you something. All right, this is an exam paper. This is a theory paper from 2021. I'm using this one because it's 2021. I can actually show it. And can you see down here on all the question papers from CIE? Look at this. Can you see that there? That is the copyright legislation. That there. All of the question papers are copyrighted. So guys, when you ask me on my channel, can you please give us a copy of the question paper that you're solving or the resource files? I used to. I can't anymore. CIE has already complained about me. They've already given me a strike on YouTube. In fact, that strike is a 90-day strike. It's expiring right now as we're doing this live session. Right now, I think it's just expired. Because I was making these files available to you. Now you're going to say, well, these are publicly available anyway. It doesn't matter. CIE holds the right to do that. If they haven't released them for public use straight up, then I can't do anything about it. So I can't share the files with you if they're recent files. Files which they've actually given already in the past. RFID tags, I can go over at the end of this if you want. I can do that because it is one that does come up every so often. So in the past, any papers that have come out way in the past and they have been publicly released, that's fine. But they hold the right to only allow teachers to give to their students, but not to make them publicly available. So that comes to our question. What is copyright legislation? Well, it's all about giving the power to the person who created the content and giving them the power to decide how their content is used, shared, distributed, downloaded. All of these things gives the power to the content creator, and that's normal. Okay, so it's a law that protects the original work of authors if it's text, artists for artwork, musicians and software developers by giving them the legal right to control how their work is used. It's their work, it's entirely up to them. You don't own it. So this basically means others cannot copy, distribute, edit, or use the work without the creator's permission. It applies to many forms of digital content, including text, images, videos, music, and software. It helps prevent plagiarism, it's a good word for you guys, and illegal distribution. So, I've put this table for you. I've made many tables for you. Watermarking. Text, art, music, and video. So text, a method that they can use is called watermarking. You can do plagiarism detection software where electronic documents can be uploaded to a system and AI can identify if this is your original work or not, if it's been work that's been used elsewhere. Students, be very careful when you're applying to universities. You're doing your personal statements. Do not get something AI generated. Do not use something that somebody else has used before, because it will be identified and you will be blacklisted. So be very, 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 very careful. Copyright notices, artwork, invisible watermarks. Now, what do we mean by this? Whenever you take a picture, you're going to do digital work or digital artwork. You have what's known as metadata. Metadata is extra data which is in the electronic file, and it stores things like what camera would, let's say you take a picture, a photograph. The metadata holds when the picture was taken, where it was taken, what kind of device used to take the picture, the name of the camera, the quality, and so much more information about that data that you don't see. This is invisible watermarks. Or they could put a visible watermark over there. And so many times when you go get pictures from the internet, they've got these little writing or copyright or watermarks on top of them. Now you're going to say, well, what happens if you use it anyway? Well, if you're making money out of it, you can be sued. You are legally responsible to get the person's permission. And if you're making money because of somebody else's content and you haven't got that permission, you're in trouble. Okay, digital music. And again, you can have inside the metadata, you can have things written in there. You can have digital audio watermarks. We don't need to go too much into that. Just think about a digital watermark on anything which is electronic. You can see watermarks are on absolutely everything. For text, art, music, and video. Okay, now you got licensing system for music, you got restriction on downloads and sharing. So you might have to have an account to give you the ability to do that. Even clubs which use music to make money, they have to pay royalties to the creators. What's happened here? Let me just turn this on. It's got a bit dark. There we go. And back. Good. Okay, so now, for all of these, you have what's known as the DRM. You could also apply DRM. This is essentially the digital rights management. And so you can understand this. What DRM is, it can be applied to all of these. It's technology which is used to control how digital content is used, copied, or shared. And for example, it can limit the number of devices a file can be used on. So you might buy software or something like that, or a game, and it will only allow you to use it on one device. Think about some of the streaming devices that you might get from your service providers. You could only have this connected to one TV. Prevents copying, editing, or printing digital files. So you can have restrictions on these, and it will block you from printing or copying. It might have internet or things like Adobe CC. Please don't use brand names. I'm just using this so you can understand. With some licenses like Adobe Creative Cloud, if you don't have internet connection after a certain amount of time, then you're locked out of your software. You have to have internet connection so that it can verify you still have a license. Okay. And then things like with music, videos, or ebook software and games. So this is something used by there. And I've got examples here. For music, think about Spotify. It prevents you downloading songs without a subscription. So you have to pay. The money that you pay, a lot of that goes to the creators when you're downloading. Video, Netflix only lets you stream on authorized devices. So you can't just, you need a specific device to actually, or an account which you pay for to be able to stream from Netflix. So that's a digital right management. They're managing the rights digitally to give you the right to stream. Software, things like Microsoft Office, they check for valid license keys. So if you don't have a valid license key, then it will lock your software or a licensed account. Ebooks, you need Kindle books, and they can't be copied or printed freely. You need to pay. Now, all of these are examples for you just to identify things that you know, but you can't use things like Spotify, Netflix, Microsoft, or Amazon. You can't use brand names or product names in your answers. just to give you a better understanding. These answers here are the ones that are going to be the easiest ones for you to remember for any device, any type of copyright. For software, we also have things like you might buy the software on a CD or a DVD or a game or something like that. So you might have a license key, which you need the license key to unlock that software, or an activation code, which is provided when you buy the software. Even if you buy it electronically or digitally, you might get a code that you have to type in. You have what you call the EULAs, the end user license agreement. So you have to agree to that license and the terms. And then if you break those rules, you can be liable. Online activation is probably the most common one now and one of the safest ones, because it keeps going and checking. You have to have a live internet connection, and it will every so often go and check that your account or your license is still valid. So if you stop paying, you get kicked out essentially. Holograms, they were used a lot on software, CDs and DVDs, and there was a hologram. It's like money. You know, when you get paper notes and they've got like holograms or unique features, that's to prevent copying. So when you're buying software, physically software, let's say you're getting the hardware version, like a CD, a DVD or something like that, to make sure it is the original. So you might have a hologram. It's kind of outdated. Serial numbers, again, quite common. Again, a lot of these now have really been replaced with license keys, which you will purchase, and online activation. So these are the different types of methods for protecting copyright laws. So here I've just put for these two answers here, online activation and product activation keys. Last question. Ooh. Oh, wow. You want the link again? Let me just put the link here again now. This is to the PDF of everything what I'm using here in the PowerPoint. I've got it as a PDF, so I'll just put it there for you to download again. All right. Pin it with a link. I'll think about, just give me a second to get over this and I'll put it up again. I am new to live streaming. It wasn't something that, do I like Diddy? I don't know what Diddy is. And I hope I just haven't said something which I shouldn't say there. Yo, Baldy, what's up? Yeah, quite bored right now. All right, last question. Let's get this over with. And then, as I said, I'm going to do something on RFID because it is something which hasn't come up quite recently, 2024. So chances are it may come up. Okay, interfaces. So a dialogue-based interface can be used to program a satellite navigation system, a device in a vehicle. Discuss the benefits and drawbacks of using a dialogue-based interface in this scenario. So the scenario itself, yeah, I don't know half of the stuff you guys are saying there, so I'm just gonna leave that. Right. So all of this, all these questions that might be to do with interfaces, whether it's a sat navigation in the car, whether it's a diagnostic system or whatever, as long as you know the different types of interfaces, you know their uses, their advantages and disadvantages, you can answer any question. So let's look at them and then go back to the question. First interface, GUI. But before we get to that, what is an interface? An interface basically is something that goes between two things, we'll call them whatever. Let's say we've got my drawing is terrible. We've got a human and we have a computer. Human cannot talk digital. Digital cannot talk human. For example, English, digital is digital, language is language. So what we have in between so that we can communicate with devices is something known as an interface. Something which will translate human language into computer language and computer language into human language so that we can communicate. So one method that we can do is the very well-known GUI, the graphical user interface. And that essentially means Windows communicates with us, or a lot of the operating systems communicate with us with pictures. We don't know what the computer's doing. In fact, we don't even know how to learn how to use a computer. We could just click on something because we can identify the picture. If I've got a Word document and a picture, I know which one the Word document is without reading anything, just by looking at the picture. So that's what a graphical user interface is. And it usually uses things called icons. Icons is from a Greek word, igona, and they were actually used there to represent a god, and each god had a unique feature. So they were called icons. So each icon for each program has to be unique, and that allows us to communicate with it. So graphical user interface, it's really easy to use. You don't need much skills or any prior knowledge or this, that, the other. Just by reading things like the start button or just identifying the file, clicking on things, things happen without you having any knowledge. It takes a lot of resources because there's a lot of pictures, a lot of processing power, and it requires a more powerful computer and more storage space. Command line interface, or CLI. CLI is when we have text. We need to write that text. We need to write the commands, which means we need to know the commands. If you don't know the commands, you can't do anything with it. Text interface, let me see if I can bring one. When I got my first computer, I didn't do ICT, by the way. There was no ICT or computer science by then. But anyways, long story short, I got my first computer. I was hearing about computers and I thought, wow, computer, I'm God. I can now hack the banks. Yeah, like a typical boy. I can hack banks. I can do this. I had no idea what computer. So I switched it on, and all I got, I just got this little blinking line, just one line flashing at me. And I'm sitting there looking at it, waiting for the magic to happen. This wonderful world of computers, nothing happened. I didn't know what to do. I was typing things, editing. Nothing was happening. Okay. And then I had to start learning things to say, well, someone said, well, if you need some, just type help. And, I will type things like help and I say, ooh, magic. But it's not doing anything. If you don't know the right commands, you can't do anything with it. But the good thing with command line interface is it's a very, very, very small interface. So you need very little storage. It's very low on processing power. But the difficult thing is you need to know the commands. You have to type them correctly, and you need to have some knowledge. Menu-driven interface. If you use an ATM or you've gone to a fast food restaurant where, I know McDonald's have them. I'm a big McDonald's fan, by the way. Love McDonald's. I'm a junk food eater. So anyway, I hate ordering from these things. When you go to those boards and then they've got a menu, you choose the items that you want and then you click and you pay. These are menu driven. Or if you go to the ATM, the automatic teller machine of a bank, it gives you the messages there and you click on the button for the for the next action that you want. This is known as a menu-driven interface. It's easy. You require no knowledge. Everything that you need to make your decision, you click on the right one. And it's very limited to what you can do. Okay, so it's a fixed process that you will follow and you choose an item from the menu. But it's really easy to use and learn. I'm going to go to touchscreen first, this one down here, before we go to dialogue based. Now, touchscreen we normally see on simple devices like an ordering system. When you go to and you tell the people what you want, they touch, bang, 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 bang. Touchscreen makes it easier to select things. You don't need any movement with mouses or keyboards. It's really fast to input and this, that, the other. But again, everything that you're going to do is a little bit more limited, and it can get tiring if you're using it for very, very, very long periods. And, clumsy or fat fingers like me, you might press on the wrong thing. Now, dialogue-based basically means a device which you can communicate with through voice. Not graphics, not text that you type, not choosing menus and not the touchscreen. Voice. Think of a navigation system. You say, I don't know, find me or Alexa or Siri. These are dialogue-based interface. You're communicating with a device using dialogue. So the good thing with driving is you keep your hands on the steering wheel. You're not looking at a screen, clicking on things or punching things or typing things or looking at pictures. You're simply talking and it's talking back to you. find me the quickest route to go to this place. Yes, the quickest route is via this, and it will show it on the map for you. So that's a really good system when you want hands-free, you want to be focused on something else. The bad thing is things like your accent may not work as well. It may interpret what you're saying as wrong, okay, and give you the wrong information or the wrong access. I'm not into football, guys. I will say though, the one team that I did support, because my nephew, up until 18 or whatever, he doesn't play football anymore. He was actually playing in for Chelsea. So that's the only team I really supported, Chelsea. Right. So interface types. I've got for you here the different interface types, the key features, the advantages, the disadvantages, and an example of each one. Okay, so basically everything that I've gone over just now, but in the table form, so you've got quick access. You only need to look at this once, and I think it was really clear. Once you've seen this once, it's been explained to you properly. I think you don't really need to memorize it. It makes sense. Gesture-based interface. Yes, that can come up. Well, that's really good. So gesture-based, I haven't actually included. A good question. Now, gesture-based is when you are using gestures. So you do have gestures on your mobile phones. I saw my son at some point, what he was doing. He was like doing this, and he was unlocking or actually taking a picture. So gesture-based is usually going to use a camera of some sort, and you can do a gesture or a movement, and that movement will be related to some kind of command. These are really good for people that might have some kind of disability. If they can't talk, for example, or if they're visually impaired, they can do gestures and movements to control something. So yes, gesture-based as well. If I do have time, I will put that in. Thank you for bringing that up. That is something I did miss out on that. So gesture-based is another one. Now, the disadvantage is there's only so many gestures you can do. So it's like a menu-based system. It's more limited in the amount of things that you can input, but it does have its place with let's say either disabilities or for quick access. Instead of typing something or saying something that somebody else can hear, you can do a gesture to turn something on, to access something or whatever. So yes, absolutely. Gesture-based as well, that should go in there. And if I have time, I will update this, and I will update the PDF. And if I update the PDF, I will write that down here. The link will update as well. Okay. So if I post the link to the PDF again, I've got to pin this, but I want to finish this before I start looking at pinning things. I'm not right. So what else do we have? The answer. So a dialogue-based interface can be used to program site, blah, blah, blah. So when it comes to this question focuses on the benefits and drawbacks of using dialogue-based interface in this scenario. What's the scenario? A satellite navigation device in a vehicle. I'm not going to read this, but I'm going to let you think about this, and let's just talk about it. What are the advantages? We've seen what we've understood what it is now, a dialogue-based interface. So if you're driving, the good thing is you can focus on the road. You can give instructions. You can listen to the turn left in 200 meters. Perfect. I don't need to look anywhere. I'm focusing on the road. So it's much safer to drive. I don't have to take my hands off the steering wheel. There are disadvantages though. I may not understand what it's saying, or it may not understand my instructions and give me the wrong directions. In fact, this happened to me on the 28th, on Monday. I had to go somewhere. And somewhere I go quite often. We've got this whole thing with army duty in Cyprus, and I had to go attend my army duty, and I keep forgetting how to get there. So I turned it on and I said where I wanted to go. It looked like I was going in the right direction, but it took me to a pet store because it didn't understand exactly what I was saying. Thankfully, it understood the area that I wanted to go in, so it didn't take me far off. I was only about 2 minutes away from where I should have been, But I didn't realize until I was parked outside the pet store. So yeah, your accent, the way you say things can be misinterpreted. Okay. So we've got down here, accents of speech could also be an issue. Commands will have to be learned. Okay, some commands as well you have to learn. So anyway, there's your answer there. So that's it. Those 13 questions. I think you're definitely going to get something there. Don't ask about thresholds, guys. Nobody knows what the threshold is going to be. The threshold is going to be determined after the results are in there. So what I'm going to do now, before I actually do anything else, I'm going to go over RFID chips, how it works, and the basis of some of the responses to help you guys out a little bit. So let me just get something from, what shall I do here? Let's do a little bit. Let me just add another slide. I'm going to discard all of that. Okay. I'm just going to draw on this slide here. Now, I'm sorry, my drawing is actually terrible. But anyway, you have to put up with it. You don't have a choice. All right, and let me just go find something on RFID here. Let's have a look. Okay, let's take this picture here. That there. All right. So here's RF. So this is something what you will find as an RFID sticker. Now, inside a plastic card, if you've got an ID card with an RFID chip, what happens is you normally have something that looks like this. This is your card, and inside the card, there's a little chip embedded inside the plastic with a circular wire, and that's the aerial. And that's the same as this little wire here. Can you see in this picture here? And this is important to understand how this works. So this wire that goes all the way around, this is like an antenna. So what is RFID and how does it work? The first thing that you have to remember with RFID, it's radio frequency identification. Now, on this little device here, this little square dot here, or the little chip, it has some information. That information can be... Wait, stop calling people dumb. Now then, that information can be your personal information. It could be an RFID chip in your passport, which has your information, your picture, your details, and this, that, the other. The communication path from RFID and reader is one way. The RFID cannot receive data. Under normal circumstances, the RFID cannot receive data. The next thing that we understand about RFID, it doesn't have a power source. So how does it work? The reader, and if we look at this, if this is my reader here, I'm going to put R here. This is the reader device. The reader transmits a radio signal. When this device, whatever device you have with an RFID chip, when it goes in the area where that radio signal is, the antenna picks up that radio signal, and that radio signal energizes, gives power to this chip. So let's get rid of that bit there. And now, while this is getting power from this radio wave here, this chip now starts transmitting back one way, a very weaker signal. It sends the information it has on the up to the RFID reader. Okay, so the RFID reader, what it does, it produces a radio wave. When the RFID chip is in that vicinity, the chip is energized from that radio. Think of it like wireless charging your mobile phone. How does that work? A wave wirelessly, when your phone is close enough, it starts charging your phone. That energy is transferred. So here the RFID is energizing, the reader is energizing the RFID chip. Once it gets energized, the RFID transmits the chip. It starts sending the data it has to the reader, and the reader can now read that information and input it into a computer system. This is the basis of RFID, and that's all you have to know about RFID. If you know how it works, we can now implement it in the different scenarios. Think of it this way. Let me show you something here. This is an example I give to students as well. These things you know about. At least I hope you know what a barcode is. Copy image. You go to the supermarket and every item you buy has got one of these things. It's got a barcode, and the cashier has to take each item and go beep, get the next one, beep, get the next one, beep, one by one. If you've got 300 items, then that cashier has to go and scan 300 items. So what we could do instead is this. If every item had an RFID chip on it, then what we could do is this. As we take our trolley, so if this is the RFID reader, this is your trolley with your items inside. All the items got an RFID. As you take your trolley through, the radio wave from the reader energizes all of these RFID chips, and all of these RFID chips now start transmitting their data back, and now automatically every item in your cart has just been scanned. Beautiful, easy. And because what it's sending is the code, like the barcode, then you just get a total which you pay. Okay, so you don't even have to take your items out of the trolley. That's one use. Here's another use. Think of exactly the same scenario now, but this time instead of a trolley with shopping items, you have an RFID reader, and here you've got loads of people coming in from the airport, walking past, and they have their passports in their pockets, and they're walking through this area here. The RFID reader transmits a signal. When as the people walk through, their RFID readers start transmitting, they're energized, they transmit their passport information here. And all of that passport information is now checked. If anybody's blacklisted, it's a beep, 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 and it will identify this person here. It shouldn't be traveling, for example. So that's another way to use an RFID reader. The next one, another quick example is, I think there was an example with an ambulance and how it can be used. Okay, so we'll do that one as a final one, and how it can control the traffic lights and how that system will work. So if we take this being I don't know if I'm going to do a good ambulance here, but anyway. We'll just put a red knob. All right, there's my ambulance. Now, if we have an RFID chip on every ambulance, each RFID chip contains a serial number for that ambulance. As we get to the traffic lights, let's say these are overhead traffic lights, here on the side of the road somewhere before the traffic lights, there's an RFID reader. As the ambulance goes through the RFID reader, the waves from the RFID reader energize the chip. The chip starts transmitting the serial number for that ambulance. The RFID reader now sends the information to a central control station saying, this is ambulance number 113. Is this ambulance on an emergency call? If the answer is no, then the traffic lights will stay as normal and work as normal. If, however, it is registered as yes, then this distance here, let's say it's got, I don't know, say 500 meters. it will then send a signal to the control lights to turn green. Well, that would be green, not red. But anyway, you get what I want to say. So that would be a green light there. So by the time the ambulance gets to this point, the lights are green and it will go straight through. Okay, so what have we learned about RFID chips? It is one-way communication. The RFID produces a radio wave which energizes the RFID chip when it's in range. And once it's energized, it transmits the data it has on it. The information is one way, not two-way. Then that information can be sent to a computer, can be whatever you want. Okay, it's a serial number for shopping items. It is a serial number for an ambulance. It is your personal detail on a passport control. It can be used any way you want. As long as you know, it could be books in a library. Instead of scanning the book, you just take the book, and as you walk outside, it registers that you've taken that book. So as long as you know how it works, you can implement it in any scenario. And these three things will give you the maximum, well, most of the marks. Saying it's one-way communication, the RFID reader sends a radio wave, energizes the chip starts transmitting its data, and the data is one way. Now then, how you use it, just use your nugget and you'll be able to apply it in any way you want. There's so many requests coming in, guys. I don't know how much more I can do, but I'll do one more because this is something which is totally new. Give me a second. And let me just find this material here. I'll do expert systems for you as well. Yeah, it's been too long. Imagine my voice. I even brought my water bottle here. So I haven't had some water, so I'm going to have some water now. I keep forgetting this is alive and I'm not recording for a video. Wow. All right, give me a second. Okay. I'll give you a link to this as well. I ain't got time for a break. I've got to go in 10 minutes, so 10, 15 minutes. So no break. I'll take a break later. All right. Okay, so here's a link. I'll put this in here as well. I'm going to pin both links. All right, so here's a link to the one for, actually, I'll put both of them up here, Expert Systems. Here are the links to the PDF and to the Expert Systems PowerPoint that I've got here. So there's both links. No, that's too long. I've got to do them separately. Oh, there's a limit. Okay. So let's take the Expert Systems now. There we go. Okay, expert systems. All right, so the first thing that you have to understand about expert systems is this. It makes you, a non-expert, become an expert. Easy. It's a little bit like AI, but don't use that analogy. I'm just using this so you can try and understand it a little bit easier. In the sense that, where's my pen gone? Here it is. All right. So the first thing that we have to realize is that it's going to help you become an expert system, become an expert when you're not an expert. And by answering specific questions, it will give you an expert answer or what an expert would answer. So think about being a mechanic. If you've got I don't know, take a BMW and there's something wrong with it, it's not working. You can either take it to a specialist, which will cost a lot of money, or you can take it to your average mechanic. Now, the average mechanic, because he's not an expert on BMWs, he probably won't be able to figure out what the problem is. But what he can do is, if he uses an expert system and a diagnostic software, he can answer questions like, does the engine start up? Yes or no? Yes. All right. Is it making a funny noise? Yes. Is it coming from behind? Blah, 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 blah. Answer these questions. And once he's answered all the questions, essentially it will come up with a list of probable things which is wrong with the BMW. And if it's a good expert system, then wow, straight away, he's now solved. He's given an expert answer without being an expert himself. So how does an expert system work? Essentially, you have four pieces or four different parts in an expert system. The first part, which you don't see, is the knowledge base. Now, the knowledge base, oh, so you guys are already in this. I've given you the link and you've already jumped into Okay, I'm going to get like 3,000 people joining this now. All right. So anyway, here we go. The knowledge base, which is here, this is a pool of data. And this is where we get all the information from all the experts. So we get a whole load of experts. We get whatever information that we can have, and we throw it inside what we call the knowledge base. This is where all the information comes from. And let's say doctors. You can get information from a whole load of doctors and put them inside the knowledge base. Today, your knowledge base will probably be based on AI. How did I become an ICT teacher? How did I decide to do that? I'm going to tell you the truth, because I always tell my students the truth. I became a teacher as a joke. Enough said about that. I never wanted to be a teacher. 26, 27 years later, I'm still teaching. Right, so there you go. So never think that what you plan is what's going to happen to you. All right, so we take all the knowledge from an expert, and we put them in the knowledge base. The next part. The next part is the interface. This is where the non-expert or the user, for example, you, is going to use something like a form or a menu, and you're going to answer questions. That's basically it. You answer questions. Let's say it's a expert system for medical diagnosis. Does the person have a fever? Yes. Next question. Is he throwing up? No. Next question. And you answer question, and depending on your answers, it will come up with another question or then finally give you an answer. So that's the user interface. This is the interface. Now, the interface can be, well, what have we learned about interfaces? It can be a graphical user interface. It may be a menu-driven interface. Usually for an expert system, it's more like a menu-driven one. Okay, it could be a command line interface or a simple input interface. Or it could be a voice interface, a dialogue-based one. But usually it's a menu-based one. That interface now communicates. So when you answer a list of questions, it sends the information to what we call the inference engine. Now, this is the heart and soul of your expert system. What does this do? Based on your answers, it will then check the rules. This is where your programming, or the programmer, whoever programmed this thing, comes in. The better the expert system, the more sophisticated it is, the better it is at making decisions. It will decide, does it need to ask you more questions? If yes, it will ask you the next questions. Once you've answered all the questions, the inference engine will then get the most appropriate answer based on your answers from the knowledge base, and that will be your expert answer. That's how an expert system works. So you've got your knowledge base, your interface. The knowledge base is all the information from the experts. The interface has been designed to collect information from the non-expert. And then the heart and soul, the inference engine, has the rules, which will then, based on the answers from the interface, from the user, will decide if it wants more answers or it will return an answer. Now, it may return an answer, or it may return that it cannot give an answer. That's it. So what else do you have in this PowerPoint here? It says here what the knowledge base is. It's the collection of facts and rules. This acts rather like a search engine. So that's what the inference engine is, examining the knowledge base for information that matches the query. So if you think about the interface where you're answering the questions, think about that as the criteria in an Access database. When you're putting the criteria and it filters your records, every time you answer something, it reduces the results because you're narrowing down the results. That's what the inference engine will do. And then once it's asked everything it can ask, it will return what the possible results are of that, just like a database. Here are some examples of inference engines that you can think about. Medical diagnosis, strategy games like chess, providing financial advice, for example. What would that be? You get all the information from different financial let's say logistics or charts from the stock exchange, when prices went up, when prices went down, so on and so forth. And then that information can be used based on the information that you give, whether it's a good time to invest or not. Identifying items. So you could, if you're a biologist, you find the species, you don't exactly know what it is, then you might have an expert system to identify something. Is it an exoskeleton insect? Does it have 8 legs? Does it have 4 legs? What color is it? Does it have any distinguishing marks? You put all that information, it will go to the knowledge base and say, it's probably this. Or it say, I have no idea what this is. You've discovered a new species. Okay. Now, what are the disadvantages? Well, can expert systems make mistakes? Absolutely. Okay. They're only as good as the expert knowledge that's been placed into it and as good as the inference engine is. The more questions it can ask, the better the criteria, let's say, then the more detailed answer it can give based on what expert information it has. It can't adapt easily to certain problems. So it may be that, let's say a medical diagnosis one, let's say somebody's skin is flush red and it doesn't have a way to put that information in. Then the diagnosis is going to be inaccurate because there's information there that you want to give and you can't. So the more detailed, the more higher power, let's say an expert system is, usually the more complicated it is to use. So if you really want to get a really, really, really good expert system, then usually it's slightly more complicated, but the responses are going to be much better. It's also good in geology. If you want to find oil, you can take samples of the soil and the surroundings and this, that, the other, put all that information in, and the expert system can tell you based on knowledge it has from other places where oil was found, for example, most likely you will or will not find oil in the location where you took the samples. Okay, so, and they don't have common sense. You know, you can turn around and say that these are all the things, these are all the symptoms and blah, 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 you know, throwing up, dizzy spells in the morning, and it says you're probably pregnant, but it's a male. It can't see it's a male if it hasn't asked. Okay. All right. Wow, guys, there's so we're going to be here all night long. Okay, so I'm going to give that a call a day. I'm just going to have a quick look from here because there's so many comments, so many questions. On the practical related questions for the papers. I don't have PowerPoints on everything. This is just one that I had, which is why I thought I would do it. I know I prefer to teach by giving examples that students can relate to. We've got a book, but you know, the book, unless you actually practice answering the questions, it's really hard. Yeah, if I do have anything, I'm happy to share. Where are we? Walk in. Seriously, we've gone over anchors 100 times. There's one anchor, one type of anchor. It's the A tag. Okay, the A tag is an anchor. Depending on the question, when it asks you, If it asks you to create an anchor to a link in a particular point in a web page, then that anchor has to point to something. All anchors have to point to something. So the A tag has to point to something. It's either going to point to a URL, it's either going to point to a file, it's going to point to another HTML file to create a website instead of just a web page, or it can point to an ID. If you read the question, it asks you to read carefully. Yeah, but the whole anchor thing, this is to do with web design. So really don't put much attention into what I'm going into right now. It's just a question that's been coming up again and again and again and again from Wilkin here. So it's getting a bit confusing here as to what it is. So don't worry about what I'm talking about now. The only things that you will find in the theory, as far as practical is concerned, is going to be things on databases, things like data validation, verification, which comes up in the system lifecycle. Or you may get questions to do with Excel. You're not going to get questions on other practical components in the theory anymore. Those are pre-2023 syllabus. From 2023 onwards, those practical question style things that came up, or the theory style questions that came in the practical, have really kind of stopped. So anyway, what else have we got? So can I post the live after? I will do. If I get time, I'm going to do it tonight or I'm going to do it tomorrow. But it's going to be quite big. I want to edit some things out. I'm glad you like the lesson. What does the rules base do? Well, the rules base in the expert system decides on a couple of things. So the rules base is the set of rules how the expert system will work. And where are we? So if you give an answer in the interface, then the rules base will decide if, based on your answer, it needs to ask another question. For example, take a medical system. If you then say, does the person have a fever? If you say no, then the rules base will then decide, right, so the answer is no. What shall I ask next? Do I ask if their sight is blurry? If it says yes, if the user says yes, then the rules base will say, okay, my next question is there a different tone to the color? Or are their lips dry? Or their eyes pale? Or whatever. So the rules base decides what happens next. If there are no other questions to decide, the rules base will then go to the inference engine to get the most appropriate answer based on the question, or based on the answers given. So that's what the rules base does. It is the rules that decide what happens next and if it's going to ask any more questions. You're more than welcome. Thank you. So many people asking me to respond. I don't know what I'm responding to. Where are we? Don't edit out, please. It's nice how it is. Yeah, I agree with you. It is. I just want to take out the little bit that, you know, we're talking about people being rude or racist. And I want to have a look at, you know, if something was said and see if I'm going to mute people. But I think that stopped after a while. Have a nice night to all of you. Guys, I just want to say, on my behalf, it's an honor, a pleasure. It's been fantastic working with you guys and helping you out. I'm really glad the tutorials helped you out. I want to thank all of you for your kind comments. I really do enjoy reading them. Your comments are actually fantastic. It's actually great to see that students do appreciate work that some of us teachers do. I've really felt the love and appreciation from you guys. It's what keeps me going to keep doing these tutorials. And the fact that, you know, this channel has gone so wide, worldwide, is just phenomenal. I'm really happy that I'm able to approach so many of you, and I just love hearing where you guys are from. So whenever you're going to comment to any of my videos or this there, just write down where you are, because I really like seeing where you guys are from. It's just amazing how technology can actually just break those barriers of the walls of the classroom and just bring everyone together. It would have been nice if we could have like a more interaction where you can talk to me as well, but there's so many of you that wouldn't be possible. But I do feel that I'm a lot closer to all of you, and you know, even afterwards, I'm gonna love to hear how you did in your exams, what results you got afterwards, and even after when you finished with the IGCSE, you know, drop by, say hello, drop a comment. It's always fun to hear how you guys are doing. I do teach some bits of the A-level, but I don't have time to do A-level work, guys. I'm really, really sorry. I'm really, really swamped. So yeah, it's just awesome, awesome, awesome. Just hearing where all you guys are from and all these different countries from all over the world. It's, yeah, I get so many comments, and so many from Pakistan, Dubai, India, Ghana. I've actually got relatives from Ghana. My nephew's from Ghana. So it's just absolutely fantastic. And yeah, awesome. Awesome. So guys, I'm going to just leave that there. Good luck. Goodbye. And please, you know, come back. Give me a shout out. Tell me how you did with your exams in August when the results come out. Good luck with the theory. I'm going to try and answer any questions that you give me after I post this on the recording. I'm going to post it in YouTube, and I'm going to try and answer as best as I can. And yeah, this has been an experience for me as well. So this is me, Nikos Pafidis from sunny Cyprus, saying goodbye. I did want to bring my cat to say hello to you. Shall I go grab her and bring her up so she can say a quick hello? Let me go have a look. Does anyone want to, let me go see if I can go get Leslie up for a sec. The PowerPoint Expert Systems. Yep, here it is. This is Expert Systems. And this is the PDF. I'll go and try and see if I can grab my cat. Leslie, all right, give me a sec. Okay. There we go. And here's Leslie. You want to say hello? Hey, why are you shy now? Why are you shy? You want to say hello? This is my furry friend, Leslie. Oh, there you go. She was actually not very well recently, but she's doing a lot better now. Ella, come say hello. Oh, where you going? Well, there's the tail. So that was Leslie. Hey, come here. Come here. Come say hello. Ella. There you go. Yeah. Up. Okay, so love from Leslie here. You want to say bye-bye? Say bye-bye to everyone. Bye-bye. You can go. Oh, there you go. All right then, guys. Take care. Good luck. I will see you or hear from you soon once your results are out. Take care. And Mr. Wise Cat. Now, I've got to go. If I sit here reading all these comments, I'm going to be laughing. I'm not going to go. I've got to go. Ooh, I don't know. I'm really quite strict sometimes. I don't know. Maybe if there's any of my students in here, they will tell you, because I've invited my students as well. So anyway, you can keep that up. Bye-bye, everyone. Bye-bye from me.